My name is Kim Jang-cheol, an ordinary graduate student in South Korea. At least I used to be. Yesterday, I suddenly became Kratos, the demon lord, the final boss of the game I love. It's also a familiar story. The goal of the game Blood Moon Warlord is to resurrect an ancient hero who has been asleep. Telling you this stuff won't help. The problem now is a polite demon who stepped forward and said, "Lord Kratos, you have a level 15 assistant named Zephyrs." He bowed and reported that preparations for war were complete. Outside, the battlefield was soaked in blood, innumerable monsters howling fiercely. Blood Prince Azurat, level 534, shouted excitedly, "Let us end our famine with today's grand invasion." Frost Emperor Sergei, level 531, continued about the tragedy born on the barren land, the pain of eating one's kin, and a call to forge an everlasting history. Duke Hartok of the Mists, level 555, ordered the tearing apart of humanity and the crushing of the fairy clans. Tyrant Ball of the Black Rock, level 539, wanted to turn everyone into food. The shouting echoed endlessly. Kratos stood high above and shouted orders. The entire Demon Legion assembled, all elite warriors ready to take commands. Kratos commanded all demons, but inwardly he calculated that this war must be stopped at all costs. Each warrior's gaze burned with the desire to fight. Ball, Sirgi, Azurat seethed with killing intent. But in response to them, Kratos declared he would halt all assaults and take up farming. After those words, the four warriors froze, stunned, their disappointment turning to anger as they shouted in ridicule. Kratos immediately glared threateningly, but inside he was terrified. The four soldiers fell silent, not daring to utter a word. A muscular hand suddenly gripped the wall. "If we start this war, system notice, you have begun turn 20. His body was massive, an indescribable hulking figure, the veteran Kim Chi, level 9990. I was sure I would die by his hand. I had become a graduate student in agriculture at Hankook University, hoping to become a wealthy farmer. I was too smart, so I quickly became the class's ace, the top graduate student. As a result, everyone asked me to write theses and do projects for them. Jang-cheol plowed fields, worked wearily, becoming the #1 slave. Jang-cheol brooded, wondering what kind of life he was living, doing all the work while the professor took the credit. Jang-cheol twisted his body in frustration, cursing those people in his head. My dopamine was depleted. I was nearly going insane. The only way to raise dopamine was to play games. Jang-cheol grabbed the controller and played an insanely difficult game, grinding hard to level up. No one had ever completed it. On the 19th attempt, I played sleeplessly, craving that sense of achievement. I became the first to clear Blood Moon Warlord on the 19th run and defeated the demon. Jang-cheol muttered in euphoria, believing he was the strongest person in the world. Turn 20 has hell level difficulty. You have to grind levels first. My character was level 9990, almost touching the cap of 9999, so I planned to stop leveling. After so many years to get here, I still decided to start turn 20. The moment I pressed confirm, the TV screen flared bright. My soul was pulled out of my body, hurtling forward, and sucked into the TV, a blinding light pouring down. My soul fell freely through the air. I was anxious but told myself this is just a soul. I can't die. Looking around, I realized I was in the Tower of Life, which meant I had entered the game Blood Moon Warlord. I recognized the place as the Tomb of the Holy Knight, elated because I was about to possess Jin Chi Laolian, a character nearly at max level. But as soon as I thought I didn't want to become that, the soul immediately turned away. I panicked, not understanding what was happening. Back in the present, Kratos clutched his head in despair, silently berating himself for a moment of impulsive thought that cost him the chance to become an overpowered character. Zephyrs strolled down the corridor, when a voice suddenly caught his attention. Kratos has definitely weakened. Murmurs drifted from the room. They were plotting to band together to behead Kratos and seize the throne, just as Kratos had killed the previous demon lord. Hartok narrowed his eyes and asked, "What if Kratos hasn't weakened? 2 of the 4 would be seriously wounded or die." Sergei nodded in agreement with his eyes closed. Azurat said he'd try if Sergei would act as their shield, which angered Azurat, who snapped, "Do you want to die by my hand?" Ball didn't care. He was only thinking about being hungry. Azurat glared and interrogated, asking what they'd do if they had proof the demon lord had weakened. All 3 replied in unison that if that were true, they'd kill him. Ball scowled from hunger, while Zephyrts calmly stood aside and listened to the whole conversation. Zephyrts carefully reported that army morale had completely collapsed, with increasing incidents of soldiers attacking and eating each other. Some even left demon territory without warning. The 4 great demon generals were furious, saying Kratos had weakened and plotting to join forces to behead him. Kratos trembled, thinking that if all 4 attacked he'd surely die. If he showed weakness, he'd also die. He wondered about Jinchi Laolian. If he didn't possess him, he'd be just a corpse, so charging straight into the human world might be better. Zephyrts raised the crystal orb and reported the recorded footage of the tomb of the Holy Knight sent by General Ogmia. Jinchi Laolian coldly swung his staff, indifferent to the demon tribe's piteous screams. He leaned in and shoved 2 fingers into the victims' eye sockets despite their pleas. The screams echoed throughout the room. Jinchi Laolian kept a murderous look in his eyes. Kratos broke into a sweat, terrified, seeing that plan as too dangerous, making him look like a madman. He resolved to stay here at all costs, because if he charged into the human world, Jinchi Laolian would certainly kill him. Kratos silently wept in his subconscious, wondering why he had fallen into this game world and couldn't even find happiness. He stood up seriously, determined to solve the food problem to reassure the demon clan. Zephyrts asked Kratos hesitantly where he intended to go. He answered sternly that he was going to inspect some lands for cultivation. Zephyrts asked again, suspiciously. Kratos replied curtly. Zephyrts raised his glasses and commented on Kratos' narcissism and arrogance, but answered very politely, saying this was terrible and frightening. Kratos was puzzled, wondering if Zephyrts was trying to provoke him, since he's always like that. Zephyrts only appeared once before the battle with the Demon Lord, but he was a famous figure. Despite being advised to return, the Holy Knight still attacked Zephyrts without hesitation. Zephyrts collapsed, blaming himself for failing to protect the Demon Lord. Zephyrts grumbled that Kratos' mistake this time was unprecedented. He'd never seen a Demon Lord lose the clan's trust so much. Kratos clenched his teeth, annoyed. Zephyrts scribbled in his notebook, asking if Kratos really intended to farm on demon land. He couldn't believe Kratos' memory was that bad. Kratos barked angrily for Zephyrts to stop, but Zephyrts calmly replied he was simply fulfilling his duty of recording the Demon Lord's chronicle because the Lord's memory had clearly declined. Kratos scowled, spat a mouthful of soil out and realized the earth here had no nutrients at all. Not even nitrogen. Although nitrogen makes up 78% of the atmosphere, plants can't absorb it directly because the triple-bonded atoms are very stable. Humans had to develop chemical techniques to fix nitrogen and increase food yields. Here there was no agricultural infrastructure. They could only take advantage of natural nitrogen-fixing mechanisms. High-voltage lightning would oxidize nitrogen into nitrate, which would then dissolve into rainwater and seep into the soil. Kratos recalled the Demon Lord's signature skill from the game, Bloodburst, detonating lightning and moisture to reform the land into fertile soil. Kratos ordered everyone to step back, then used his sharp nails to scratch his other hand and cast Bloodburst. It hurt, but it had to be done. Suddenly, a heavy, murderous aura descended. The 4 pairs of eyes of the great demon generals stared at Kratos, convinced he had weakened. Kratos froze, panicking. Zephyrts lifted his glasses and asserted with certainty that Kratos had weakened 100%. Kratos decided Zephyrts was an assassin, trying to provoke him and find an opportunity to kill him. Kratos braced himself and scratched his hand again, determined he'd rather feel pain than die. He activated Bloodburst. Fresh blood quickly mixed into the air, then rained down across the barren ground. Kratos clutched his hand and groaned in pain. Rapid footsteps sounded. The 4 great demon generals appeared, exuding murderous intent, and asked, "Are you feeling unwell, my lord?" Kratos broke into a sweat, stammering in fear. On the high hill, the veteran Jinchi maiden sat in contemplation, remembering she had lived this life more than 10 times, having been summoned here before, but now her hands were gone and she had no purpose left to live for. NPC Jinchi veteran at level 9990 looked mournful, staring at empty hands, then walked away cold toward everyone. Kratos remained disoriented as the 4 great demon generals readied their killing intent. Azurat sneered and reminded them of demon law. The strongest is the demon king. Kratos thought to himself that each of them was powerful. He couldn't even use a single skill. Was he really going to die here? Azurat also felt an incredible pressure. Seeing Kratos trembling yet confidently provoking them, he asked whether Kratos could beat all 4 in his current state, signaling the other 3 to stand ready. Though outwardly confident, Azurat was secretly afraid. The other three's eyes clearly showed they intended to watch the fight first before joining in. Azurat cursed his treacherous comrades under his breath, while Zephyrs switched on the live display, stressing that by demon tradition both sides must fight to the death. Kratos and Azurat shouted in unison, focusing on each other's moves. With no way back, Azurat drew his weapon for a decisive duel, vowing to win. Kratos gritted his teeth and calculated, knowing he wasn't an invincible demon king but that he still had some power. Azurat suddenly attacked. Kratos flinched back in terror, recognized the thrust he'd seen before in the game, and unexpectedly dodged. He was surprised and wondered how he did it, then realized Azurat's move was identical to the game, allowing him to predict his opponent's intent. Azurat regained his balance. Hartok and Sergei observed and noticed Kratos had prepared to counter. However, Kratos continued to dodge attacks with ease, thinking privately that every movement was within his prediction, just like his in-game practice. He remembered that in the last run he had to die many times to beat Azurat, and later made a joke of him by simply running and dodging. Now Azurat continued to attack, but Kratos still casually evaded, mocking his opponent. The three demon generals were horrified by Kratos' confidence and strength, thinking he was too powerful, while Azurat was bitter over being repeatedly dodged. Kratos realized this world followed rules just like the game. The system announced that Kim Jang-cheol had grasped the basic rules. A notification appeared confirming he could dodge enemy strikes through intense focus. Azurat went berserk, using tentacles and blades in a furious assault. The system reported a game feature partially unlocked the targeting function. Kratos immediately applied it, raking his fingernails hard across his palm. Creating bloodburst, a sphere of electricity formed and struck Azurat, causing him pain. Hartok and Sergei were astonished, and the demon clans watching live cheered excitedly. A murderous gleam lit Kratos' eyes, watching Azurat cringe from the electric shock. Kratos bit his lip, realizing Azurat was still alive despite the killing blow because his recovery rate was far faster than expected. After thinking it through, Kratos immediately unleashed another bloodburst, attacking Azurat. Azurat's piercing scream terrified the others. Kratos' assault didn't kill him but inflicted agonizing pain. Kratos panted, silently judging that Azurat wouldn't die. What should he do next? The system notified that Azurat's clothes had been completely torn and that he was now gasping. Kratos was startled by the message and wondered if the system could be any less perverted, and at the same time announced the discard armor inventory had been unlocked. Kratos checked the inventory, realizing there was only the armor he was wearing, nothing usable. He calculated cautiously. Azurat had to be dealt with first because of his rapid regeneration. He'd recover quickly. Kratos realized that as long as Azurat wasn't dead, he could still target him and continue attacking with bloodburst. He grinned inwardly, deciding to give Azurat a lesson he'll never forget. Turning to look at the trembling demon generals, Kratos thought they must be very afraid of him. As a test, he loudly called for Sergei, startling him into a response. Kratos gave the order and tightly bound Azurat to the post. Sergei blushed, feeling ashamed that tying up a naked man humiliated both himself and Azurat. With Azurat securely bound, Kratos began preparing the lightning rod. A light breeze blew, revealing Azurat's face. He came to, screaming loudly that he was immortal, challenging Kratos, insisting bloodburst couldn't kill him and vowing to behead Kratos. But the moment he finished, a bloodburst jolted him into paralysis. Kratos ordered Hartok to blanket the area in dense fog to amplify the lightning's effect. Hartok, amazed, realized this was an extremely inventive form of torture, and immediately deployed thick black smoke into droplets of mist. Then Kratos frenziedly unleashed bloodburst after bloodburst at Azurat, blood and electricity alternately bursting forth. Zephyrs watched with no expression, while Baal and Sergei were stunned by the blood-soaked scene. Azurat's body became a living lightning rod. Kratos was exhilarated, thinking this would convert the soil into nitrate-rich earth. He excitedly imagined a bumper crop. The torture continued relentlessly amid Kratos' wicked laughter. As the sun set behind the thick mist, Kratos scooped up a handful of soil to inspect, pleased with the result, planning to keep transferring nitrate into the ground and reinforce the soil structure. He determined he needed to create loose, granular soil ideal for cultivation. At that thought, Demon King Kratos issued an order. "All of you, give me your dung." The three demon generals froze, shocked that, after turning Azurat into a lightning rod, he now wanted them to smear dung on him as well. They all found it cruel. Meanwhile, in the dense forest, Kim Chi was walking when he heard moans pleading for help. He cautiously approached and saw two injured people begging for help after being attacked by a bear, promising a reward. Kim Chi stepped forward to reassure them, though he looked highly suspicious. He dutifully questioned them, then acted before they could react. He hoisted the injured man onto his shoulder and told the other to lead the way. Though flustered, the holy capitalist Frontera agreed. Azrahan introduced himself as Envoy Rivage Azrahan, and the one with him as his servant. Frontera tried to be friendly and asked for a name. Kim Chi simply replied that it was something he was looking to find out. At Demon King Kratos' castle, the three great demon generals sat in brooding silence. Hartok worriedly wondered how they were supposed to deliver the dung. Sergei felt embarrassed and agitated. Bal was saddened because he hadn't eaten in so long he couldn't relieve himself. Sergei stood up angrily and forbade any mention of his own dung. Hartok seriously suggested beating low-level demons to force out dung. In a remote border village, wailing cries rang out. A gaunt, trembling demon squatted, begging people to step back so he could relieve himself. Hartok folded his arms outside, impatiently asking why it was taking so long. The soldiers complained as well but could do nothing. Before he could finish, Hartok coldly stepped in and asked the demon whether there was truly no other way to produce dung. The demon stammered in fear. "Lord Hartok, I haven't eaten in so long I can't." The weak demon stuttered. Hartok immediately seized its neck, lifted it with his sharp black claws and snarled, "Thank you, I understand." Having said that, Hartok raised his claw as if to pierce the demon's belly. Could only cry out pitifully for help. Luckily, Bal grabbed Hartok's hand in time to stop him. Bal explained coldly, "Piercing his belly would kill him, which means no dung. They need to keep going so we can collect more." Hartok nodded in agreement, admitting it was a smart idea unexpected coming from Bal. Still, Hartok's veins bulged as he suggested that if they fed the demon's Baal's flesh, maybe they'd be able to digest it. Baal's face grew serious, emitting a fierce killing intent. Two great sources of power erupted at once, making the low-level demon tremble violently. Both gathered their strength into a punch and lunged at each other. At that moment, Kratos appeared and shouted, "What are you doing?" Hartok and Bal flinched, their bodies going numb. Kratos explained, "Humans aren't the only creatures that defecate. Dung that lacks nutrients is useless. We must find nutrient-rich manure." Zephyrts echoed, "Manure." Kratos nodded and confirmed, explaining that manure is the material that provides nutrients to soil, usually made from wood powder, grass, soil, eggshells, and chicken droppings. Wood powder and grass could be taken from the houses they'd seen, but eggshells and chicken droppings would be harder. Suddenly remembering something, Kratos ordered Zephyrts to bring the kingdom map. Zephyrts immediately presented the map. Kratos studied it closely and found it was identical to the map from the game, certain he'd be able to locate what they needed. He pinpointed the seabird nesting grounds, a place that in the game appeared in large numbers. Kratos predicted the birds could digest much waste from humans, and where they defecate and lay eggs would become an excellent source of manure. Zephyrts asked, "Your Majesty, do you intend to collect seabird guano?" Kratos praised Zephyrts for his acuity. Zephyrts recounted that the place was called the One-Way Cliff. With no handholds, anyone who fell would be swept away immediately. Kratos knew this, but confident he could climb it. The three demon generals all thought Kratos was insane, since everyone who tried before fell into the sea and died. Kratos instructed, "I'll climb up, throw down sacks of guano and eggs, and you must catch them." He assured them that if he succeeded, everyone would have food. Bal recalled the scene where Hartok once gripped the weak demon by the throat. When the demon clan was starving with nothing to eat, Kratos approached the cliff, thinking about how many times he tried to climb here in the game before, trying every method and dying countless times. He leaped up, digging his fingernails into the rock, exploiting a game glitch to cling on. The demon generals watched in stunned silence. Kratos opened the game's inventory, hit the button to drop all items, causing himself to be naked and sink into the cliff. Sergei turned bright red with embarrassment and quickly looked away. Kratos repeated the maneuver, climbed up, spun around, and put his clothes back on, and step by step approached the high cliff. Finally, he stood imposingly on the summit, combining his in-game experience with the item system. Bal watched in surprise and decided to climb up to help Kratos. Before Zephyrts recovered, Bal had already lunged upward. Zephyrts tried to stop him but was too late. Bal had already leapt to the cliff, causing it to begin crumbling. Kratos quickly grabbed Ball, gritting his teeth to hold on, sweat pouring from the strain. Thinking inwardly there was no reason to save him, Ball was one of the 4 demon generals and a major threat. Kratos' mind suddenly wavered, recalling the hesitation between helping and letting go, like the times he refused to help fellow disciples in the past for fear of getting into trouble. Maybe if he tried a bit harder, he could have saved that person. If he hadn't imposed limits on himself, that face in his memory would always be a smiling one. Kratos shouted in frustration and anger, putting all his strength into his arms. Even if his bones broke, Demon King Kratos still tried to pull Ball up. He swung forcefully, heaving Ball onto the shore, and he panted, clutching his aching arm. Ball was stunned, not understanding why his majesty had saved him despite the risk of injury. Kratos fell silent for a moment, then replied, "Because it's less painful than abandoning a subordinate and living to regret it." His features trembled, tears welling at the corners of his eyes. This was also what he should have done for that person. I'm sorry. At that moment, the system board appeared before Kratos. Though he hadn't fully adapted to the Demon King's body, he poured all his strength into saving the man and received the gratitude of Ball, one of the 4 demon generals. Kratos nodded to himself, realizing that it was indeed his gratitude. The system announced that accumulating the army's happiness would yield a large number of points. Kratos was surprised the happiness points could be spent to buy stats, but currently only 20% of Demon King Kratos' power was usable. Upgrading stats required many points, and right now the HP points were 0. The system also allowed points to be used to upgrade skills, but that consumed points as well. Kratos thought that if he worked hard farming points, he'd become stronger and improve his chances of survival. Seeing Ball cry and thank him, Kratos felt a thrill inside. Being thanked by someone felt really good. Ball thought to himself that Kratos' face looked like it would tear him apart if he disobeyed, and that he now owed him a life. In truth, Demon King Kratos hadn't saved him out of any noble motive. Standing on the cliff, Kratos called down, "I'll pour the guano and eggshells into sacks and throw them down, catch them." Those below choked back emotion, and Kratos decisively hurled the sacks down, sending everything splattering. Excited, Kratos clenched his fist, determined to grind hard. Make organic fertilizer from seabird guano, eggshells, dry grass, and gritty soil, then mix it all together. He ordered Sergei to crush and mix everything together, but Sergei angrily objected, saying his hands weren't meant for this sort of work. Kratos smiled coldly and gave another task: just stand still and take the lightning strikes. In the end, Sergei relented, painfully chopping repeatedly to mix the bird droppings, while Kratos stayed wary of his hot-headed, dim-witted subordinates but remained determined to press forward. Step 2 was adding water. Kratos ordered Hartok to spread mist to raise the moisture. Hartok was annoyed but still had to fly around creating mist. Kratos asked if it was moist enough. Ball checked and confirmed. After soaking, the soil softened. Next came drying it in a dry spot and covering it with a thin layer of fur cloth. But producing enough fertilizer to cover this barren land would be extremely time-consuming. Kratos determined he had to mobilize the entire demon race. Though he had concerns weighing on him, he had to continue advancing in the role of Demon King. Night fell and moonlight shone into the ramshackle house. Inside the room, a sorrowful demon bowed his head beside the sickbed. Little Flute lay there, frail, pleading with her father to eat her. Her father painfully refused. The girl only wanted to see her mother. Suddenly, a woman appeared, smiling gently, but was immediately swallowed by a monster. Flute's father fell into despair, with no reason left to live, when suddenly a noise cut through. Demon King Kratos entered with his subordinates. Kratos growled, "You still have the strength to scream? Take him away." Someone blocked and asked about Flute. If they left her, the high-ranking demon would eat her. Despite his desperate pleas, Kratos and his subordinates coldly walked away. "Flute, father, how many more demons do we need? We have 20-30 more to go." Kratos' gaze chilled as he looked at Flute. The little girl could only cling on in misery, with no hope left. Kratos remembered the first time he encountered Flute in the game, when he didn't hesitate to press the controller button and let the sword fall to take Flute's life. Back then, Flute wore that exact same look of despair as now. However, this time Kratos turned away, brushed his hands, and ordered an end to all cannibalism. From now on, that act is illegal. He instructed Zephyrs to gather all remaining demons to begin producing fertilizer. Though brutal, Kratos believed it was the best choice to achieve their goals. for a leader must be willing to sacrifice. Dusk fell, and the demons had to take up mallets to pound the droppings. Some doubted the point of what they were doing, but were warned they'd lose their heads if the Demon King heard. Still, Dyrok was irritated, arguing that even if the soil became fertile again, there wouldn't be any seedlings to plant. Suddenly, Kratos appeared behind him and asked Dyrok what he meant by that. Kratos seriously led the way, reminding him that he had seen a purple flower under a tree that day. This species could be cultivated. Baal and the farming team also dug up many other specimens. Dyrok questioned that the roots of this plant were inedible, eating them would poison and kill you. Kratos held a root, saying there was nothing else to eat in this land, and the experiment would proceed immediately. Dyrok was horrified, shouting to stop his daughter from trying it. But Flute had already eaten the day before, given by Zephyrts and Baal. She remained fine and felt full. Kratos confirmed this, then explained to Dyrok that in human history poisonous foods had been processed into staples when necessary, like the potatoes in the Andean region. Flute was moved and thanked Kratos for his unexpected kindness. The system reported that happiness points were received for the first time, and HP increased by 1. Kratos looked at Flute's smiling face, thinking that being Demon King didn't mean he always had to be tyrannical. He smiled and encouraged the girl to just eat and grow up. Dyrok, however, suspected Kratos was only fattening Flute up to eat her later. The Chavan de Antor territory Kratos ruled was bone-chillingly cold at night, blisteringly hot by day, with a harsh climate like the Andean highlands, where ancient people once had to eat poisonous potatoes, but survived by finding ways to detoxify them. Dyrok asked if the Demon King had neutralized the potatoes' poison. Kratos ordered Baal to crush them all. Baal carried out the order at once, stomping the potatoes into a pulp. Then the workers froze the tubers for 5 nights, using a meteor stomp to warm Baal by day, helping the toxins volatilize and dissipate. After drying and storing them, the potatoes were now safe to eat. Kratos ordered everyone to gather and allotted 2 tubers to each person. Zephyrts asked why they couldn't use them all. Kratos explained they had to save some for seed stock because the current number of potatoes was still far too small for the whole army. The demon workers were still suspicious and worried about safety, but Dyrok reassured them that Flute had eaten and was fine. Ignoring all doubts, Dyrok tried the first bite. The other demons watched anxiously until he swallowed it all and broke down crying with emotion. Then everyone dared to eat after him. After eating, the whole horde of demons shouted Kratos' name, making him scowl because he disliked that kind of adulation. Zephyrts watched, thinking even Kratos himself wouldn't have expected to produce edible food on this barren land. Maybe he really could end the famine. The system reported that a portion of the demon army felt happy from the good meal. Happiness points increased by 50. Current HP is 51. Kratos looked at the system display and unconsciously smiled, thinking that getting these points was not bad and could be used to boost his strength. However, he decided to save up more points before choosing which stat to raise. Kratos rubbed his chin and split the teams into a farming crew and a fertilizer crew. Zephyrts ordered the farming crew to announce to the village that food could now be grown, and promised that anyone who dug up a potato would receive a voucher to redeem this dish. Kratos glanced at Zephyrts, judging that although he was annoying, he was also very helpful. The loyal demons dug for potatoes, while Sergei and Hartok and the other groups tried to make fertilizer. Kratos ordered the lightning rod Azurat to be moved, instructing it to be planted in the ground, then to discharge blood charge to produce nitrogen. There was enough fertilizer. Now came the step of spreading it across the fields, but the area was too vast and the workforce too small. Azurat behind them groaned, begging to be put out of its misery, but Kratos coldly fired high-voltage shocks that immobilized it, forcing it to work without rest. Seated on his throne, Kratos asked Zephyrts about recruiting more troops. Zephyrts reported that he had ordered attacks halted, focused on seizing new land and allocating as many troops as possible to agriculture, and had sent messengers to the star regions requesting more people, but had yet to receive a reply. Kratos, annoyed, thought the messengers might have starved to death on the way, realizing it would be very difficult to evenly distribute fertilizer with the current numbers. In the Star region, in a stone fortress, a general knelt to report to Sathril that Demon King Kratos had started farming and producing food. Sathril believed Kratos had halted the war to reduce famine deaths and keep himself in check. He ordered Fikamer to destroy all of Kratos' crops. Fikamer's eyes flashed green as he accepted the order to act that very night. Fikamer slipped into Kratos' fields, summoned phantoms to sabotage them, throwing the fertilizer away, mixing the soil with pests so nothing could be harvested. The phantoms danced and cheered in triumph, while Azurat watched helplessly. Azurat remembered that thoroughly mixing fertilizer into the soil would make it very hard for farmers. Nearly impossible. At dawn, at Kratos's castle, the phantoms worked hard out in the fields, tired but proud to have done something useful. Under the sunlight, they dissolved into tiny soul fragments that drifted up to the sky. Vikamer wiped his tears, praised the phantoms, and waited to see how Kratos would react. Spreading the fertilizer took longer than expected. They themselves needed about that much time. Kratos folded his arms before the pile of potatoes, realizing they were all in a dormant state. He explained to Zephyrts that potatoes won't sprout if left like that, as if sleeping peacefully in the earth, and if pulled up suddenly, they'll die of shock. Their biological rhythms stop. Kratos thought the dormancy would end faster if the potatoes were kept at 4 degrees Celsius for 2 to 3 weeks, then moved to a warm, dark place. However, Sergei was angry, and Hartok was also disgruntled, so they couldn't ask anyone for help and had to consider alternatives, like raising the storage temperature to around 23 degrees Celsius. Kratos tried having the farming troops train in groups, but they quickly became exhausted. He decided to go down to the farm himself, and was taken aback by the mess before him. Kratos couldn't believe his eyes. The soil had been overturned, and a stench filled the air. He grit his teeth, realizing the field was ready for cultivation. It was hard to believe. Vikamer skulked to the side, silently watching Kratos's expression, thinking he had succeeded in ruining the field. But shortly after, Baal stood behind him, swiftly seized Vikamer and handed him over to Kratos to deal with. Vikamer struggled, demanding release. Kratos recognized him as Vikamer, one of the Deathcliff lieutenants, likely summoned by a call to arms. Without waiting for an answer, Kratos landed a punch on Vikamer's face. Zephyrts wondered why he hit before asking, but Kratos suspected Vikamer was hiding something and chose interrogation. Vikamer remained stubborn, but was punched by Kratos repeatedly until he groaned. After failing to extract anything for a while, Kratos wearily stopped, deciding to spend 50 HP to increase his stamina by 30%. After raising his stats, he kept beating him until Vikamer finally confessed the truth. He had been ordered to sabotage the fields to cause famine, and Sathril was the one blocking all requests for aid. Zephyrts judged this to be both a rebellion and an opportunity. If Kratos could defeat Sathril, the entire army would take it as a warning. However, Sathril had the ability to shapeshift like a phantom, moving throughout the Deathcliff and proving very hard to deal with. They would need to find a way to draw him out of hiding. At that moment, Flute was digging in the soil, when her eyes met Azurat, bound to the cross. She politely thanked him, saying that thanks to Azurat's sacrifice people now had food, which made him furious, and he shouted back. Flute fled in terror, while Azurat swore he would take revenge on Kratos if he ever escaped. From afar, Kratos appeared with the farmers, who shouted and cheered loudly, joyful, because there was a second lightning rod. Azurat was stunned, thinking he would be released, but instead continued to serve as a lightning rod alongside Vikamer. Kratos unleashed a blood shock, and thunderous electricity jolted them both repeatedly. Sathril sat watching from across the crystal bridge, pained to see his subordinates tortured and helpless to stop it. Cut to, Flute kept eagerly digging in the soil. Though still small, her hands were already full of wounds. Azurat sneered at the girl, saying digging the ground was pointless. Flute paid no mind, cheerfully thanked him, and continued working. Azurat snorted, wondering what good the girl's efforts would do, since the potatoes couldn't sprout if the storage wasn't warmed. Flute immediately went to put that into practice. Inside the castle, Zephyrts doubted the plan to lure Sathril, but Kratos insisted that even knowing it was a trap, Sathril would not risk himself. The plan was to gradually capture all his followers, eliminate dissenters one by one, and monitor the enemy's reactions through the crystal orb carried by the scout birds. Sathril could easily observe everything and smugly believed Kratos could do nothing to him. His real goal was merely to destroy Kratos's crops. Immediately, Sathril ordered the cursed souls to rush to Kratos's storeroom, trample everything, and crawl inside. But Kratos had anticipated it, waiting in ambush, smiling cruelly as he welcomed them into his own tomb. Recalling his first encounter with these souls in the game, Kratos knew well they were dangerous, tending to cling to players and capable of copying powers, and could only be killed by a lightning strike. As the souls tried to flee, they realized the storeroom door had been covered in red blood prepared the night before. Kratos immediately activated his power. Lightning chased along the blood trail, erupting violently, sucking the souls into it. He shouted, ordering the farmer troops to rush in and finish them off. The seemingly weak farmers coordinated tightly and quickly took control of the situation. Kratos felt truly like a king commanding an army, growing more accustomed to this world. The remaining souls were obliterated by Kratos' lightning. While cleaning up the potatoes, he found Flute emerging from the pile of tubers, just as a soul lunged toward the girl. Kratos threw a potato to save her, and unexpectedly it caused the soul to change color, sprouting a shoot right on the spot. He realized the rise in temperature had triggered the potato's biological clock. Kratos scooped Flute into his arms, declaring that Sathral's attack plan had failed. He raised the tuber aloft and ordered the farmer soldiers to advance. Cut to Azurat, tired, was pondering the meaning of life, when Flute appeared with him a bowl of seed potatoes, recounting the successful harvest. When fed, Azurat felt a simple joy he hadn't experienced in a long time. The system announced the Demon Lord Legion reached extreme happiness and gained a large HP boost. Kratos was pleased and resolved to accumulate points to prepare for facing Sathral. Kratos rallied the farmer troops and launched the charge. On the other side, two souls severed the wooden bridge, thinking they had cut off the attack route, but Kratos suddenly leaped over, fell into the chasm, causing the souls to mock him, but he quickly climbed back up, slipped into the armor he'd prepared beforehand. The two souls panicked and fled. Kratos signaled to Zephyrs and pressed straight in, knowing Sathral no longer had real spirit troops at his side. The plan was ready to unfold. Immediately after, a swarm of phantasmal soldiers surged at Kratos. He used a supreme quantum movement technique to separate himself from the armor, letting his naked body tunnel deep into the earth while the armor moved on above. The phantasmal soldiers panicked when they saw Kratos phase through a wall and appear on the upper floor. They tried to chase but couldn't catch up, utterly powerless against that strange movement. Kratos knew every nook of the map from 19 prior runs and patiently waited until they clustered together to trap them all. When the phantasmal soldiers had surrounded him, Kratos slipped the armor back on and stood in the center, signaling for the farmer army led by Zephyrs to appear from small holes in the walls, who began hurling potatoes at the phantasmal soldiers, causing the potatoes to sprout and assimilate with them. Zephyrs privately admired that every part of the plan had matched the Demon Lord's instructions. The secret passage Kratos chose was an ancient sewer system, thought to be a dead end, but in fact led to the initial battleground with Sathral, where the transformative elixir could be obtained. The crystallization of the ancient giant's longing, which would transform whoever used it once according to their deepest desire. The farmer squad, happy with the sprouted potatoes, prepared to sow for the new season. Kratos quietly recalled memories of childhood hunger, resolving not to let anyone block his path to plenty. When Baal appeared, Kratos coldly ordered him to go distribute the potatoes, saying dealing with Sathral was his business. On Sathral's side, he prayed to the frozen heart spirit, hoping for more power. Kratos smashed through the stone and charged in, confronting him directly. Sathral was surprised Kratos had found this place, but Kratos gave no answer, only emphasizing he would eliminate anyone who stood between him and his dream of peace. Sathral began to transform, using the ability to copy all of Kratos' stats, but in fact he only copied the Demon Lord state of Kratos, which was still weak at this moment. Kratos waited until he finished, then immediately spent HP to boost agility, strength, magic power, and intelligence, each increased by 10%, dodging blows in turn and answering with powerful strikes that left Sathral stunned. When the stats had each risen to 30%, the system announced the upgrade quest was complete and unlocked a new skill. Summon the Farmer King's Throne, requiring 100 HP to activate and providing durable agricultural tools. However, Sathral was still not defeated. His body dissolved into a viscous pool, and then transformed a second time, revealing his true form as a giant dragon, the real power of his beginning. An ancient evil dragon appeared, and Kratos was astonished by the opponent's superior attack power and vitality. Though a mid-level boss, up close it still exerted pressure. He smiled, ordered Baal to kick the door in, and led the farmer army forward. "I come with many followers, didn't you know?" Sathral started sweating before he could look intimidating. He stammered a request to negotiate, but the troops, all armed with hoes, picks, and other tools, attacked without giving him a chance. Sathril could only beg for mercy. Kratos paid no mind. He had wanted a fair fight, but with someone as arrogant as him, killing by his own hand was appropriate. Kratos activated the new skill and summoned the Farmer King's throne. A beam of green light shone down from the sky. A chair carved from wood, integrated with all kinds of farming implements, slowly descended, leaving a large depression in the ground. The surrounding farmers cheered and praised the demon lord, believing only Kratos would dare to finish off an opponent so decisively. Out in the fields, Fikamar's body twitched, his soul detaching from the corpse, preparing for reincarnation. At this time, all the fields had been plowed, the potatoes had sprouted lushly, and pests had been taken care of. As the group prepared to plant the potatoes, the heart of the frost spirit trembled. The system announced that the Deathcliff Saran had been defeated 20 times and a hidden event was triggered. The frost heart opened, and cold air filled the chamber, then split in two, revealing a small dragon crawling out. The little dragon blinked at Kratos and gave a weak cry. He stepped closer, picked it up, wondering what kind of creature it was. The little dragon whispered, "I hatched from darkness and was once very afraid. Meeting you is my greatest fortune." Kratos gave a strange smile and murmured, "How cute." The little dragon trembled, while the surrounding farmers shouted, "Eat it! Yum yum!" Kratos barked, "Raise it more meat later." The little dragon began to well up with tears. Leaving the tower, Kratos led the little dragon outside. Everyone cheered at the sight of the healthy potato shoots. Families hugged each other in happiness. The little dragon was startled by the warm atmosphere, but when it saw Kratos' terrifying smile, it trembled again. At the Demon Lord's palace, the little dragon hid in a corner, peeking at Kratos. He watched intently, wondering what to feed it, imagining crafted gems, but finding only rusty metal. Zephyrts reported difficulties building the planting beds, and Kratos understood they needed raised ridges in the furrows. But the soil was full of rocks and the farmers were exhausted from being unable to break them. The little dragon, held in Kratos' arms, feared it would be forced to work like a slave. Kratos surveyed the land and saw that if they kept digging like this, their food reserves would run out quickly. Even reinforcements wouldn't solve the problem. He wished he could summon beasts to clear the rocks like protagonists in stories. Then his gaze returned to Flutie. The girl still persisted in helping everyone. Just then, a massive tornado approached. Kratos immediately shouted for evacuation, and everyone hurried to find shelter. But Flutie ran against the crowd's flow, toward where Azurat was hanging, with Dyrok rushing out after her. Kratos handed the little dragon to Dyrok for safekeeping, then ran off himself to rescue Flutie despite the danger. Baal anxiously tried to stop him, but Kratos surged forward, thinking agriculture was survival and the true battlefield. As Flutie struggled to lift the lightning rod, Kratos kicked hard, breaking the pole, and Azurat fell to the ground. At that moment the tornado was upon them, leaving small wounds on Kratos' face. Flutie cried from the pain but kept trying to untie Azurat. He gritted his teeth, thinking, "This knot could bind even the 4 heavenly kings. Idiot, how will you undo it? You can't do anything, go away." Kratos carried Flute in his arms, and with his other hand hoisted the pole that had tied Azurat onto his shoulder. The little dragon watched and frowned, thinking, "I sense power in this living being, but father isn't that strong either." Kratos' face gathered more wounds, yet he still pushed himself to run, carrying both burdens. Though strong, he gradually grew exhausted as the tornado closed in, blasting everything with fierce winds. Despite his best efforts, Kratos' speed could not outrun the tornado, and finally he collapsed to the ground, risking himself to save others. The little dragon wriggled free from Dyrok's arms, thinking, "My father is a kind creature." It immediately flew to Kratos, took a deep breath and exhaled a thin layer of frost, causing the tornado's speed to slow markedly. Kratos frowned, realizing the little dragon's cold had weakened the tornado's force. The little dragon continued to breathe frost, but it was clearly beyond its strength. The tornado still moved, sweeping everything away. Baal, Dyrok, and Zephyrts each carried someone and ran toward the Demon Lord's mansion on the cliffside. In the dark room, Kratos lay unconscious on the bed. Sergei and Hartok climbed the steps quietly. He glared, "Now that the Demon Lord has fallen, I'll cut off his head." Sergei added, "After we take down that idiot Baal and Azurat, one of us will become the Demon Lord. Until then, we're allies." Kratos' door opened, and the two of them stepped inside. Just as they were about to strike, they both suddenly froze. When they saw Kratos open his wide, bloodshot eyes and gape, which made them tremble and unable to move, Hartok blurted, "Damn it. He knew we'd come and opened his eyes waiting for us. But this is our only chance." At that moment, Baal and Azurat's voices rang out. "What are you two doing?" Baal said in a low voice, "The Demon Lord is sleeping. Don't wake him." Hartok frowned. "That a sleeping face? He truly is the Demon Lord." Baal threatened that anyone who dared wake him wouldn't be spared. Hartok growled, "I know you, you big idiot. But Azurat, are you siding with that lunatic who wants to farm?" Azurat smiled. "Not really. I just owed him once, so I'm paying it back. Next time I might be on your side." He continued, "Don't you think so? Planting a single potato has caused so much trouble. Don't you see that farming will fail and people will starve?" Azurat recalled Flutie diligently digging with her shovel, her hands covered in calluses, and replied seriously, "If we don't want to starve, we have to risk our lives. I'd rather work than fight you." Hartok sneered, believing they would both regret it. Then the two of them left. At that moment, Kratos spoke up. "The Demon Lord is awake." He looked at them blankly. Azurat smirked. "I'm just repaying a debt, not taking sides with anyone." Before he could finish, Kratos interjected, "What kind of lightning rod wanders off to chat like that?" Azurat looked puzzled and didn't understand. Then a flash of blinding lightning surrounded the mansion and screams rang out. Baal carried Azurat's smoking body away, full of fighting spirit, and everyone resumed picking up stones. Baal announced, "Almost out of stones." Zephyrts turned the soil, and Kratos was surprised. Before him, the farmers were still diligently tilling the ground under the glaring snowy sun. He asked, "Zephyrts, how did you get rid of all the stones?" Zephyrts pointed ahead. "Stones? Over there, the little dragon was hovering, its mouth full of rocks." The little dragon quickly swallowed them, thinking, "I'm so small. I have to eat a lot to grow fast." Below, Kratos called out loud, "T-Bong!" The little dragon immediately recognized its father, flew into his arms. "T-Bong, you're so cute." He reasoned that sword storms didn't appear often, so the little dragon could scout from the air and blow cold breath to stop them. It was inconvenient, but there was no weather forecast here. "The fields are nearly ready. It's time to process the potatoes," Zephyrts anxiously asked. "The bonus fertilizer supply is running low. Should we make more?" Kratos shook his head. "Not necessary. The greatest enemies of farming are natural disasters and financial pressure. Those are the walls you have to overcome." Cut to a scene in the manor. Sergei sat before a mirror, removing her hat, revealing her long golden hair. She complained that the smell hadn't gone away despite hiding indoors for days. A knock sounded at the door. "Sergei, I need to speak with you." She frowned. "Lord Demon King, you've never come to my room before. There's something to discuss. Open the door at once." She snapped. "Don't say things that could be misunderstood. Not seeing each other's faces makes misunderstandings easy. Please go away, or I'll call for help." "I'm coming in." The two argued through the door. Finally, Sergei shouted, "I told you there's nothing left to discuss." As she turned, she saw Kratos nude and about to pass through the door, and she screamed in panic. "Good heavens, are you insane? How dare you enter a lady's room like this?" Kratos didn't answer. Unexpectedly, he dropped to his knees before her. Sergei frowned, not understanding what Kratos was doing. He lowered his voice. "Sergei, without you I can't do anything." She looked at him in surprise, her face slowly flushing. Kratos thought to himself that he'd kneel if it saved costs. "Right now I need your sharp, precise sword." Sergei blushed, hesitating and stammering. "If you say so, I'll listen. What's the matter?" Still, she couldn't believe the Demon King's behavior. Had he gone mad? A few minutes later, Sergei, looking battle-ready, stood beside Kratos in front of a pile of potatoes. He frowned. "Cut the potatoes for me. I need you to slice accurately, make halves for planting since you have quite a few hands." Sergei froze, so angry she felt like crying. "Are you kidding me? You bastard. You perverted Demon King." Despite her anger, Kratos patiently explained. "This task is very simple. From now on, we'll be cutting potatoes, but there's a little trick. Each tuber has a different number of sprouts. If there are 3 sprouts or fewer, don't cut it. If there are more, you must cut so the eyes are evenly distributed between the 2 halves. If there are too many sprouts, Just ensure one side doesn't take all the eyes. Cut however you like, as long as they're divided evenly. After explaining, Kratos picked up a potato. Okay, if you understand, start cutting. Sergei glared in anger. I never said I wanted to do this. Without waiting for her, Kratos, eyes sharp, tossed the potato toward her. Though unwilling, when the potato flew toward her, Sergei drew 2 blade bands from her sword scabbard. For blades glittered out from the joints along her back, and she unleashed a storm of slashes. Seeing the sprouts evenly divided, Kratos suddenly exclaimed, "Oh shit!" He stepped forward, picking up each potato piece from the ground, marveling, "Damn! How did you cut so precisely?" Kratos turned and flashed a sly smile at Sergei. As expected, no one else could do this but you. Sergei looked dumbfounded, then shouted, "Do you think I'll fall for that flattery? You trickster, villain, fraud, sycophant." Hearing that, Kratos narrowed his eyes in anger, making her think she was done for. But no, their demon king Kratos was a consummate actor. He gently took Sergei's wrist, causing her to blush and exclaim, "This bastard Kratos? What is he doing?" Then he carefully took each of her swords, dipped them in water and wiped them clean with a cloth, meticulous down to every detail. Sergei felt as if she'd suffered the greatest shock of her life seeing Kratos do such a baffling thing. She stammered, "You? What are you doing?" Kratos replied gently, "Your blade is covered in dirt and potato juice. Of course it needs to be cleaned." Seeing Kratos like that, Sergei's heart fluttered. This demon king is crazy. Why does that action look so sincere and attractive? As for Kratos, he thought, it must be spotless. When cutting potatoes, it's best to disinfect the blade each time. Otherwise, bacteria or viruses could spread to other tubers. After wiping them, Kratos put on a sincere expression and asked, "Can you help me process this whole pile of potatoes? You're the only one who can do it quickly and effectively." Sergei answered softly, "All right, if you say so, I'll help you this time." Hearing that, Kratos excitedly ran outside, turning back to say, "Okay, I'm going to get bait and spirits, no leaving sober tonight." Hartok, standing outside, couldn't help but be suspicious hearing those sounds. Kratos said, "Lift your hand to the door." Sergei snapped, "Hey, aren't you tired?" Kratos replied, "There's a song for moments like this to lift the spirits." While wiping Sergei's swords, he hummed the tune softly. Hearing it, Hartok grew even angrier, thinking Sergei foolish to volunteer as a slave over a few compliments. The scene shifted to the lightning rod. Azurat was questioning life, his spirit crushed. What is the definition of life? What is the meaning of this existence? Is a life of torment worth living? Just then, Flute stepped closer, excitedly playing a game of tossing seed kernels. Azurat, exhausted, said, "Hey kid, do you think I, one of the 4 great heavenly kings, will play with a lowly demon like you? Step closer and I'll chop your head off." Flute paid no mind and kept flinging seeds at his face, making Azurat furious as he yelled, "Idiot, you can't even throw straight here. Here, can't you do it?" Hartok watched the scene utterly dismayed, thinking the man had completely broken down beyond hope. Lost in thought, a loud shout rang out from behind the farming crew. The seed potatoes had been cut and dried. Ball, carrying a large sack of seeds, marched forward with Kratos, shouting, "We'll plant potatoes on this field." Seeing Ball approach, Hartok could only shake his head in exasperation. The guy was always a fool, and so was Azurat. You couldn't count on those 2 idiots. A few demons from the farming team bowed their heads and thanked Sergei profusely. "Thank you. Because you cut the potatoes, we can plant them." Sergei blushed, embarrassed, but replied loudly, "Get lost? I didn't do it for you. Don't be ridiculous." Saying that, but inside she was moved. A member of the 4 great heavenly kings feeling touched by a few words of thanks from these lowly demons. Watching them rejoice over the seeds, she sneered inwardly, "You're really happy about these seeds? You're demons, don't you feel any shame?" On the other side, Hartok grew angrier seeing the demons act that way. He vowed to himself, "I, Hartok, a demon of great intellect, will one day overthrow the demon king." Watching the demons cheer for the seeds, Kratos was confident. Keep sowing the seeds. Soon the cacti will leaf and bloom, and the sweet water filling the highland will be the day the demon king returns home. Ball cut in from the side. "I'm great at winking. Whose eyes are we gouging out first?" Kratos snapped angrily, telling him to forget about eyes and shut up. He raised his hand and said, A single seed potato can sprout at least 3 eyes, and at most 5 to 6. He pointed toward the farming crew. The question is it better to have many sprouts or few? The demons up front shouted in unison. The more the better. The more the better. Kratos sternly barked. Wrong, the answer is fewer is better. Hartok leaned against a nearby tree and sneered. Pathetic, why do we have to learn this nonsense? 2 nearby demons asked in puzzlement. Why is that? More is always better, right? They whispered, thinking the demon king must have misspoken. Surely it should be more is better. Hearing that, Hartok sighed, ground his teeth and snapped. Idiots, worthless fools, shut up. The 2 asked again. Why is that, sir? Hartok, exasperated, thought they really were 4-limbed simpletons. If there are too many sprouts, they'll suck up all the nutrients as they grow, and the potato tuber we eat won't get enough nourishment, right? Kratos suddenly asked, how do you know the exact answer? Where did you learn agriculture? Hartok replied with disdain. Why learn something this simple? The sprouts and roots of a potato connect and share nutrients. Isn't that obvious? Kratos continued. So how many sprouts are optimal? Hartok closed his eyes and put on an air of expertise. About 2 sprouts, of course. Strictly by nutrient efficiency, you might think 1 sprout is best. But if that one breaks in an accident, the tuber could die. You didn't think of that. Kratos asked again. When it sprouts, what should we do next? Even annoyed, Hartok kept explaining. This soil has been carefully prepared for strong growth, with added organic fertilizer and loosened earth to increase aeration. Everyone was surprised by Hartok's knowledge and listened on. He said, this kind of soil is not only good for potatoes, but weeds will also grow and steal nutrients from the potatoes. So we have to pull them out. It's obvious if you think about it. Hearing that, Kratos nearly went mad, shouting and applauding. Unbelievable, he really is a genius. Everyone clapped for Hartok. As the cheers rose, Hartok quietly leaned against the tree, feeling the worship of the crowd, emotionally clamping his hand over his mouth to keep from crying, tears slowly streaming down his cheek. He thought, I never expected the day I'd be recognized as a genius. Kratos stepped closer to Hartok and spoke. Hartok, the wisest and most intellect of the demons. From today, please lead us as the head of the farming team. Hearing that, Hartok grew angry again. Don't think a few flattering words will persuade me. My intellect was born for killing and plundering, not farming. Kratos looked back at the demons. What are you waiting for? Show your respect to Hartok, the most intelligent of the demon realm. All of them shouted in unison. Hartok the genius. Long live Hartok. Hartok was angry, thinking they were truly low, stupid demons, but for the sake of pride he reluctantly agreed, folding his arms and putting on a serious face. Fine, since you all said it, from now on I will lead you to glory. The demons joyfully jumped and chanted Hartok's name. At that moment, the system announced, you have won 4 psychological battles. Kratos asked suspiciously, psychological battles? What does that mean? The system continued, you witnessed Baal's abandoned childhood and turned him into the most loyal subordinate. You gave someone like Azurat, who had never had friends, a comrade, and his level of violence decreased. You melted Sergei's heart, someone who had never known love. You sowed pride into Hartok's heart, a man desperate for recognition. Hearing this, Kratos could only smile without speaking. The system announced again, you unlocked a new skill, costing 200 happiness points. The skill Blood Sight allows you to see a target's near future up to 6 hours. The target can be a living creature or an object. Kratos widened his eyes in surprise. The system continued, you can even see the sky if you want. Kratos smirked slyly. Oh, so I can predict the weather? Cut to a village on the edge of the wasteland and the human territory. This is the village of the exiled. A man stepped into the room. Are you fully recovered? The other clasped his hands in thanks, breathing a sigh of relief. Young Master Elbiha. The other replied, Durio, you've worked hard caring for me. In my next life, I want to be born with a stronger body. Durio answered, if there's a next life, I want to be rich and be nobility. Elbiha laughed heartily. Ha ha. We both dream the impossible dream. Elbiha looked at Kimchi. Our plan now is to return to the kingdom. Will you come with us? Kimchi darkened and replied, I'm not sure. You all know I don't remember who I am, and I'm not even human. He continued, the first time I came here, the villagers were terrified when they saw me. Where could possibly welcome me? The 2 sympathized. Then Elbiha smiled. How about you change into different clothes? The three left the room. Durio saw Kim Chi still hadn't changed, only draped an extra cloth over himself, and sighed in frustration. The outfit troubles Kim Chi. I also want to change, but I can't take it off. It's merged with my body. Before leaving, Elbaha took the village chief's hand to thank him for the help and promised to report back to the king when they returned. Kim Chi thought about himself again, fumbling for answers, not knowing who he was, only ever following assigned orders like a machine, killing constantly. Cut back to Kratos' farm. As the seeds began to sprout, a few nearby demons shouted out, "Wonderful, amazing, the seeds have sprouted." Sergei and Bal were also surprised as almost all the seeds they planted had germinated. Flute ran to the lightning rod to share the joy, laughing, "Lord Azurat, they say the seeds have sprouted." Azurat frowned and barked, "What does that have to do with me?" "Over here," Kratos shouted. "Everyone listen. Our next task is hilling the soil." Kratos turned to Hartok. "Farming genius Hartok, please explain this to those idiots." Seizing the chance to show off, Hartok said solemnly, "Hilling is adding a layer of loose soil to cover the plant base. This prevents grown potatoes from being exposed to sunlight. If potatoes are exposed, their color changes, the taste worsens, and sometimes toxins form that even baby Chu won't eat. Yes, people can call that potato spoilage." After speaking, Hartok looked proud. Kratos beside him kept praising, "Hartok is truly philosophical." Everyone applauded loudly. After a while, Kratos decided to test the new blood sight skill. He thought it was time to check today's weather. He looked up at the sky and shouted, "Blood sight, activate." The system reported the usage condition. You must stare at the sky without blinking for 200 seconds. After staring for a while, tears welled in Kratos' eyes. He sighed in awe, truly a remarkable skill. He probably needs a pair of sunglasses. The nearby demons saw Kratos crying and buzzed. "Look, he's crying. Maybe he's happy the sprouts have germinated." After 200 seconds without blinking, the system announced a successful prediction. For the next 6 hours, clear skies, white clouds, and shimmering sunlight. Kratos looked at T-Bong. "Good, no tornadoes today, you can rest." While playing with T-Bong, Zephyrts approached. "Lord Kratos, I have a report." Kratos turned. "Spit it out then," Zephyrts reported. "My lord, Demon Lord Planus II requests your presence." Cut to Kratos' castle. LaFleur bowed respectfully. "I am LaFleur, right hand of Bliners II. I have come to pay my respects," he continued. "Upon receiving your ceasefire order and the message about farming, Demon Lord Raster III was displeased and attacked us. His goal is to become the ruler of this demon realm." Hearing this, Kratos seethed, thinking he might have to send him packing. Zephyrts warned that if Raster III defeats Planus II and unites the two territories, will be at a disadvantage. Kratos pondered, "They're not very powerful individually, but they're numerous and ferocious. So we must act first, but what about the farm? We can't neglect it. What to do?" Kratos continued calculating. Planus II's domain under attack lies at the bottom of the abyss of death, namely the Putrid Swamp. Compared to the game's map, this world is 10 times larger, extremely distant. The well used for upgrades and teleportation under the demon castle is broken too. How can we both farm and fight? After thinking a moment, Kratos said, "Wait!" and paused for a few seconds, a sly look crossing his face. Who does he think he is? As a demon lord, why fight in person? Sergei saw that expression and snapped angrily, "Humph! Don't get me wrong. It's not that I'm fighting for the demon lord." Bal shouted loudly, "I will do everything for you, Lord Kratos." Kratos thought, "Fine, Sergei and Bal will go to battle. The demons who aren't good at farming will accompany them. This route goes against the end boss area, so there are many shortcuts. We can reach the Putrid Swamp very quickly. The farming is handled by me and the automatic sprinkler Hartok." At that moment in the Putrid Swamp, the scene was desolate and fires burned everywhere. Planus II knelt before Raster III and shouted, "You bastard! How dare you defy the Demon Lord's order and rebel?" Raster stepped closer and said, "Yes, I am rebelling, but you must understand, or the demon race will be doomed." Planus roared angrily, "Didn't Lord Kratos say we could make this land fertile and have ample food without fighting the humans?" Seeing that Planus still refused to yield, Raster flew into a rage and swung his mace to finish off his opponent. An axe flew through the air to stop him. Raster III suddenly turned his head. So 2 members of the 4 heavenly kings have arrived as well? Sergei advanced with his sword. Raster, yes, we are a warrior tribe. We regarded killing as a source of pride. But when did things turn out this way? I get it now, not killing but saving lives can make me prouder. At that moment, Flute ran home as fast as she could, threw the door wide open, and shouted, "Father, come to the fields quickly." When everyone went out to the field, they were all astonished by the picturesque scene. Even Azurat was moved. Zephyrs and Hartok stood side by side, savoring the joy. From afar, Kratos watched the demons happily at play and felt content. The demons had always dreamed of the Demon Lord's rebirth, and at last that day had come true. Seeing Kratos approach, Flute cried out, "Demon Lord, it's so beautiful." Kratos bowed his head and smiled. On the other side, Sergei lunged into attack, and the Trilord Raster couldn't withstand it, screaming in agony. Baal took the opportunity to clamp his hands around Raster's neck, while Sergei unleashed a flurry of deadly strikes. Kratos replied softly to Flute, "Yes, there are many. Those sprouts have all bloomed." The Trilord Raster cried out in panic, "Wait, you say saving people is a point of pride, so why are you chopping me?" Sergei hesitated for a moment, then said, "Well, that's true, but someone has to die so the others can live." With that, she resumed her assault. The Trilord wailed in torment, "I don't understand what you're saying." Kratos loudly issued an order. "All right, cut the necks of those useless flowers for me. Do it quickly." Kratos' command shocked the farming demons and even the little girl. Azurat jumped up and cursed first. "Ah, cold-blooded demon lord, I'll never forgive you." Hartok wiped his brow and muttered, "Seeing this, my heart still swells." As expected from the demon lord, he immediately ordered, "What are you standing there for? Strip those flowers clean now." Azurat was furious again. "Ah, you dog, you bastard." The farming demons had no choice but to obey, trembling, eyes streaming with tears, looking at the flowers in their hands as if they had life, wanting to weep. They pounded the ground and wailed, "I can't do it, Captain. We planted them with our own hands. It's the first time something this beautiful has bloomed on this land." Hartok reasoned, "Clearly, if left, sunlight's nutrients will be drained to feed the flowers and seeds. This is the Demon Lord's supreme strategy to concentrate all nutrients for potato growth." The farming demons had no alternative and complied. Each flower was plucked by their own hands, causing them immense anguish. Across from them, Kratos grinned savagely. "Ha ha! I can already hear the potatoes growing like crazy from here." The tormented demons lamented, truly worthy of the Demon Lord finding joy in destruction. That night inside the castle, Sergei and Warlord Baal returned with the bound Trilord, reporting, "Raster has been captured." Kratos sat high above and demanded, "See the consequences of daring to rebel? Even the one-star lord was defeated. What could you possibly accomplish?" Raster remained stubborn. "Kill me. A demon who has lost the pride of a warrior is better dead." Kratos obliged. "Very well." He struck with blood break, but Raster just sneered and taunted, "Heh. My flesh is armor that hit felt like a mosquito bite." Kratos was even more pleased. "Oh, indeed, hardly a scratch. I just found something extremely useful." Thus, the 3rd-generation lightning rod was born. Kratos immediately tested it with a blood break. Raster screamed in agony, "Just kill me." Kratos paid him no mind and instead ordered Azurat, "Hey, someone go untie the 1st-generation lightning rod. He's been recovering poorly lately. It's time to retire him." Azurat was stunned. "What?" The ropes were removed and thrown aside. Azurat collapsed to the ground. The little girl hurried over to check on him, but as she approached, a feral laugh rang out. Azurat glared at the girl like a demon, growling between clenched teeth. "You lowly demon dared to mock me all this time, didn't you? I'll tear you apart first, then Kratos." The girl, stunned, tried to step back, but Azurat's momentum mounted and he lunged forward, only to slip and fall flat on his face right in front of her. He muttered in irritation, "Damn, it's been so long since I've walked on solid ground." Warlord Baal stepped up and added, "Azurat has regressed to a primal form." Azurat protested, lifting his head. "Where did you pull those fancy words from?" Baal ignored him and scooped him up, making Azurat panic. "What the hell are you doing? Don't carry me like a princess." Ball replied very seriously. This is an order from the Demon Lord. Stay like this for a while. Azurat blushed with shame. Humiliating, I will not forget this disgrace. Kratos watched their retreating backs and thought to himself, I was worried he'd go berserk, but when I used the blood eye, I saw he wouldn't be able to move for the next 6 hours, so I let him go. With that in mind, Kratos waved his hand and ordered, Now that harvest time is near, speed up the work. Seeing everyone get to work, Kratos was extremely pleased. Sergei's rapid weed uprooting technique erased the flower beds in an instant. Hartok's awaken technique made irrigation as easy as a flick of the wrist. There weren't many dried potatoes left, and the amount paid to the workers kept decreasing. Though they were used to hunger and going without, it was clear they were growing gaunt. Just then, a tray ant stepped forward and said, My Lord Demon King. Kratos turned. Second Lord Planus knelt with respect. My gratitude, I have come to thank you for coming to our aid. Kratos was a bit incredulous. Frozen. Thank me? The sight made the Second Lord break out in a cold sweat, because in his eyes Kratos looked extremely angry. Kratos scolded inwardly. He comes to thank me empty-handed? Normally you bring a cask of wine or some ginseng. The Second Lord stammered. I'm mobilizing the Third Lord's forces along with mine and will send laborers right away. Kratos threw up his hands and sighed. Sigh. Never mind, they don't even have food. I'm way too used to Korean customs. The potatoes will be deployed. I want us to produce tons of dried potatoes soon. I want to see them eat their fill. After all, why did I start farming in the first place? The Second Lord, seeing Kratos say nothing, hurriedly excused himself. Then I'll go gather the troops immediately. Kratos snapped awake. Right, go. Watching his retreating back, Kratos felt a bit puzzled. That guy was a final boss at low difficulty, with a biography as bland as distilled water. He went around whining that strength was the only truth, then followed Kratos with blind loyalty. Well, since he's a plant, he'll be useful for farming. Meanwhile, the Second Lord ran across Kratos' fields for a while, his legs beginning to tremble as he felt how fertile this soil was. This land was full of nutrients, a sensation he'd never once experienced in the rotting marshes. Since he was a sapling, the ground he'd lived on had never had enough nutrition to sustain him. But here, on the soil tilled by Demon King Kratos himself, he could grow strong. Here he could become a demon lord. With that thought, he leapt straight down the cliff below, letting his network of roots plunge deep into this land at will. The next day, just as the sun rose, Kratos shouted loudly, Attention! Demons for exercise, get ready to begin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They completed a full sequence. Kratos stopped and watched the demons dutifully call it back. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Kratos changed the move. 1, 2, 3B. He couldn't help but marvel inwardly. At first they were a ragtag bunch, yet now they executed his commands perfectly. That's the demon constitution, even sudden orders are kept up with. He shouted, Roll to the left, roll. The demons immediately complied without missing a beat. Kratos continued, Roll to the right, roll. He drilled these exercises because basic stamina was mandatory. If they were to do the backbreaking plowing, they'd now know to train themselves without being forced. Just then, Warlord Ball came running in a panic, shouting, Demon King, big problem, the potato leaves have all turned yellow. Kratos was not surprised. He quietly walked out to the farm. Every potato leaf had yellowed. Hartok stood in silence, unsure how to handle it. Zephyr squinted and muttered, I knew it was this just too much in the end. Sergei also lowered her gaze in sadness. Hartok grumbled irritably, I don't even recognize this symptom. Could it be lack of wind or water? What did we expect from farming? Stupid. Seeing Kratos approach, Zephyr hurriedly asked, Demon King, what's going on here? Kratos sat down silently, staring at the potato row, and without hesitation grabbed a stalk, pulled it up to reveal a mass of tuber-filled roots beneath. Hartok gasped. What? It's pale in color but huge twice, even 3 times the size of Baal's first potato. Kratos' face darkened as he exclaimed, Should I say the potatoes have awakened? They've siphoned nutrients from the leaves to grow bigger and tastier. You all worked hard, you're the ones who planted them. Everyone sighed in relief, eyes brimming with tears, too ashamed to look up. A moment later, inside the Demon King's castle, Kratos leaned back and stared at the ceiling as familiar voices echoed in his head. It was you. It was you who planted them. Oh my. Those cherry tomatoes are coming in great. My beloved Kratos, you've done so well. The scene shifted to the day she was put onto the stretcher. Kratos rushed home from school and ran up, but he only managed to see her on oxygen being taken away. His mind went blank, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. Idle thoughts. Damn it, as a logical person I won't let those emotions get to me. Soon we'll have enough potatoes for everyone to eat, but I can't drop my guard just yet. If we rely only on potatoes, a single season of potato blight could spell disaster for us, like the famine on island. Potatoes can temporarily ease the situation, but we should quickly secure seeds for other crops. Suddenly, the ground shook violently. Kratos sprang up. What the hell? Is there construction going on? No sooner had he spoken than the floor split open, and a gigantic tree root burst up from beneath the ground. Kratos hurriedly backed away to dodge it, scowling up and snapping. Holy shit! What is that? Out in the field, Flute saw the potatoes trembling and tried to reassure herself. Wait, the Demon King said the potatoes are just trying to grow. He said the leaves wither to help them develop, but the leaves keep falling more and more. The girl hurriedly dug down and shouted, Wait, no, this isn't right, something's wrong. She pulled up a stalk and found only a bare stem, no roots, no potatoes. She intended to tell the adults right away, but as she rushed forward she suddenly froze. The Demon Lord's castle had been tightly wound by roots. Kratos was bound hand and foot, hoisted high into the air. The gigantic face of the second king appeared, sneering. You look like a bunch of pests, Demon Lord Kratos. Kratos startled. You're Planus, he laughed with delight. The fertile soil and nutritious potato fields you, the Demon Lord, created are what made me this strong. Kratos stared blankly, only to see the potato fields ravaged. He couldn't hold back, grinding his teeth and snarling. You bastard! What did you do to our food? The second king mocked tauntingly. What can you do now? Roots swung Kratos into the air, slamming his body hard into the ground. The force was too great for him to endure. He coughed up blood. Roots snaked everywhere, sending the demon generals into a panic as they fled. Hurry! Get out of here! Overlord Baal refused to accept it and tried to rush to the rescue. I must save the Demon Lord! The others painfully held him back. Are you crazy? We're still alive, there's no way he was defeated. Baal shouted. No, he's too weak. I noticed when I lifted him he's really weak. On the other side, earth and rocks kept falling. Kratos was buried by the second king's stones, his body sinking deep into the darkness. The four great demon generals stood dumbfounded. Zephyrus was stunned. Is that Planus? After finishing, the second king turned and shouted loudly. Listen to me, you demons, Kratos is dead. The demons were shocked and speechless, frozen in place. The juvenile cartilaginous one wept in grief. The second king's voice rang out. By the ancient laws of the demons, strength is authority. From this moment on, I am the Demon Lord. Kneel before absolute power. Hartok felt annoyed, thinking, I guess Planus absorbed all the nutrients from the soil. Kratos is dead. The strongest here is Planus. The demon clan submits to the power of the strong. They began to kneel one after another. Sergei pressed his lips together, unwilling, but his legs still went down in submission. The crowd shouted in unison. We pay our respects to the new demon lord of this land. Zephyrus froze and looked over at them. Azuret saw this and cried out, What are you doing? Zephyrus, kneel down. Zephyrus gritted his teeth, unwilling, but still had to kneel. The second king reveled as he looked down at the crowd. Zephyrus seethed with resentment, tears streaming down his face. Meanwhile, Kratos was sinking into memories. He wanted to play hide-and-seek with his mother. This was that day. Am I dreaming? Kratos, close your eyes tight, count from 1 to 10, then go find Mom. Yes, sir. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Mom, where are you? I can't find you anywhere. Mom, come out, please. I'll count to 10 again. Okay? 8, 9, 10. Mom, I counted to 10. Mom, I'm done counting, Mom. At that moment, the system appeared. Kim Kratos, wake up. Kratos' face was covered in blood, drowsily opening his eyes. What? Did the system window just call my name? Hey system, where am I? Am I dead? The system displayed. Move. If you can move, you will live. Kratos lay back helplessly, tried a quantum leap glitch like in the game, but it failed. He couldn't move an inch, there was no room here to maneuver. My hands can move. I'll dig even if it's just bit by bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 9, 10. The counting continued to echo in the dark space. Outside, the second king called out, "Registrar, step forward." Zephyr stepped forward respectfully. "Your Highness, archival officer reporting. Hail the demon lord." The second king ordered, "Record this great first step clearly. From this moment on, the demon race will invade humanity. We will crush humans and turn them into livestock to be eaten." The demon generals fell silent and sighed. "Back to square one. Well, that's fine too, it's fun. I can fight and kill at will now. Demons have always lived like that, as long as they're full. But why does my blood boil so much?" In the abyss, Kratos's counting voice kept sounding steadily. Kratos grew increasingly uncomfortable, feeling like he couldn't breathe. Outside, the second king continued to exhort, "Demons, take up your weapons. We will march into battle." The demons fell silent. Not a word. Zephyrs clenched his lips and raised his head to object. "Your Majesty, we cannot go to war yet." The second king frowned and looked down. The demon generals tensely lifted their heads. Zephyrs reported clearly, "Our only food now is a few small potatoes. With that amount of provisions, how can we possibly campaign?" This made the second king at a loss for words. He couldn't help but snap, "Idiots, we already have enough supplies." No sooner had he finished speaking than a small root shot out, quickly coiled around the little girl and lifted her up. The girl's father cried out in pain. Azurat also looked up. The second king paid no heed. "Aren't there plenty of weak, useless demons to serve as food?" The little girl screamed in panic. "No, we're not like that anymore. We can live without eating each other. Our demon lord Kratos, said he would make it so." But as she spoke, the second king glared at her, and she fell silent. The roots released her, dropping her into the dark abyss. Below, Kratos strained and scratched, his body exhausted, his heart beating more slowly. "If I die, they'll starve." He managed to gasp out, bloody. Kratos slapped himself to jolt his heart rate. Despite the pain, he refused to accept it. He couldn't bear to see anyone suffer from hunger. Sensation returned to his hands, and he resumed clawing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Outside, the second king glared down, only to see the little girl cradled in Azurat's arms. Underground, Kratos kept struggling to get out. He kept using an electric drain skill to stay conscious, digging while shouting inwardly, "Too hard. This is too hard." His hand clenched tight, wondering how much farther he had to go, and whether he was headed the right way. He lay helplessly sprawled on the ground, doubting whether his efforts would succeed. On the surface, everyone was sweating, as they watched Azurat risk his life to snatch the girl. Holding her tightly, the second king Planus leaned down and snapped, "What are you doing? Azurat, do you dare defy my orders?" Azurat didn't answer. His body trembled with fear, but he still held the girl tight. Seeing Azurat silent, the second king flew into a rage. Realizing he was doomed, Azurat hurriedly explained, No, this is my reserved food." He bit the girl's head as he spoke. "I've had my eye on her for a long time, planning to keep her for when she's fresh." Azurat's explanation was unconvincing, and the second king cracked a whip hard across Azurat's butt, sending him flying 500 meters. As Azurat's body flew past Sergei and Baal thought to himself that the Lotus Lord must have seen this. Azurat fell unconscious on the spot. Zephyrs was upset but dared not speak. The second king shouted, "Let me say it again. Prepare thoroughly for the invasion of humanity." Zephyrs pondered, then suddenly shouted, "This is impossible. There's no justified reason to act." In response, a sharp tree branch shot straight at him. As the branch was about to pierce Zephyr's chest, an axe appeared. Baal intercepted the blow in time, and the second king was furious. Baal hurriedly pulled Zephyr's into his arms and explained, "The demon lord assigned that task to Zephyr's. If he dies, who will be left to count the potatoes?" Hearing this, the second king snarled, Were you trying to incite a rebellion?" Hartok couldn't hold back any longer and spoke up, "A rebellion? This is absurd." Hartok frowned. "We only believe that instead of an invasion, the agricultural initiative that Demon Lord Kratos created and completed is a more reasonable command to follow." Sergei spoke up as well. "I have a question. My Lord Demon, you once proposed a path where no one has to die, so why go to war when there's another way?" Hearing this, the second King Pliners couldn't hold back and shouted, "Too noisy. It's unbearable." He unleashed his power, emphasizing, "The decision belongs to me. My words are the order." Hartok replied, "Absolutely not." They all erupted with power, ready to fight. Hartok stressed, authority must have a rational basis. The peasant crowd also risked speaking up. Exactly. The demon lord should be Lord Kratos. Pay for the potato field you destroyed. You scoundrel. Unable to bear the insult, the second king Planus launched thousands of branches toward the peasants. As the branches were about to strike them, Hartok timely used a mist barrier skill, covering the core and stopping the attack. Ball lifted Sergei with both hands and shouted, "Attack!" Putting all his strength into it, he flung Sergei high into the air. Sergei's consecutive slashes cut through all of Planus's branches. With momentum behind her, she lunged toward Planus's head and shouted, "I'll take your eye to pickle first." But before she could do anything, a giant branch struck her body and she fell freely to the bottom of the abyss. Ball was entangled by vines, spitting out several liters of strawberry-flavored fluid. Hartok fared no better, crushed nearly to suffocation by Planus's massive hump. Planus shouted, "How dare you challenge the demon lord? All of you must die. Only death will awaken you to the truth that I am greater than that pathetic Kratos." Branches whipped wildly, sending the peasants soaring into the sky. He continued to roar, "You dare speak of our demon lord? That coward's dead before he even had a chance to yawn." Almost everyone had been knocked unconscious. Planus swung the giant branch at Zephyrts, yelling, "What's so great about him? What makes Kratos any more special than me?" A voice rang out from somewhere. "Excellent question, bastard. Who gave you permission to touch my people without asking?" The murderous tone made Planus freeze, chilled to the bone. A bloodied hand rose from the ground. With one hand, Kratos caught the giant branch that was smashing toward Zephyrts, and he punched hard, splintering the branch to pieces. Planus widened his eyes in shock and shouted, "No way, your damn bastard could survive." Seeing Kratos alive, Zephyrts suddenly felt an odd sense of safety. At that moment, the system announced, "On the razor's edge between life and death, you have learned a new skill." Rewind to 10 minutes earlier, when the faint light of life was fading from Kratos' eyes. He lay there on the thin line between life and death, his body spent, breath as weak as a passing breeze. In that desperate moment, Kratos suddenly burst into a loud laugh. The laugh rang out dry and bitter, a mockery of his fate. But the smile quickly faded. Kratos fell into thought, his eyes vacant as he stared into space, his voice dropping to a mutter to himself. "It's too hard. I can't do this." Suddenly, a familiar image surged into his mind, the gentle grandmother with a warm smile like spring sunlight. He felt pulled back into the past, to an afternoon after school. Back then, Kratos, or rather Jang Cheol, quietly returned to the small house. Curled up in a corner, arms wrapped around his knees, muttering over and over, "It's so hard, so hard." Then he looked up into his grandmother's loving eyes, his voice full of grievance. "Why do we have to live in such hardship?" Hearing his complaints, she was silent for a long moment, her cloudy eyes seeming to look through the years of struggle. She slowly took a small dry seed from her pocket, placed it in her wrinkled palm and said, "Because you are the seed, Jang Cheol. Everyone living in this world is a seed. No matter how barren the ground, a seed will still force its way up and sprout. Seeing that little sprout will inspire other seeds. Every seed will eventually germinate. One day that sprout will multiply, grow larger, and life will turn green and flourishing." Her words were like a long, philosophical sermon, but to Jang Cheol then they sounded like empty platitudes. Anger flared inside him. He shouted, his voice breaking with fury, "Save me the moralizing talk. Why did my kind father die from hard labor? Why did my mother abandon me? Doesn't that make me a rotten seed? Don't give me that nonsense." Tears streamed down his cheeks, his voice choked and trembling. "I'll only look out for myself, like my mother. I'll succeed, eat, and survive on my own." Time passed and those memories seemed buried, until the day Jang Cheol received the news that his grandmother lay on a hospital bed, her breath faint as a candle in the wind. He ran to the hospital, legs failing, heart-wrenching. Seeing her, tears flowed again. Though near death, she still tried to speak, weak but full of love. "Jang Cheol, my child, we are all seeds." Hearing that, he could only sob uncontrollably, tears mixed with pain and regret. He realized he'd lived selfishly and wasted time with her. Back in the present, on the brink of life and death, Kratos clenched his teeth, his eyes burning red like an indomitable flame. He activated a blood surge, his heart pounding as if to burst from his chest, holding on to his last breath. At that moment, a cold voice rang in his head. System notification. Kim Jang-cheol, you have endured the pain of death and been reborn. Your will and spirit have surpassed the limit, unlocking a new system, the Mana Seed system. Kratos murmured in shock. Mana Seed? That's not in this game. The system continued. Reward for 3 successful resurrections. Your Mana Seed starts at level 3. The Mana Seed amplifies all stats by a fixed multiplier. The enhancement at level 3 is 1.310. Seeing the system panel before him, Kratos frowned. All stats increased by 30%? Could that let me get out of here? The system went on. Optional skill of the Mana Seed system, Concentrated Essence Training. Allows focusing all stat bonuses into one attribute. Usable once per day. Lasts 10 minutes. Reading this, Kratos' eyes lit up. He looked at the system panel. Endurance, will, strength, dexterity, magic all up 30%. He roared and activated the Mana Seed. In the thick darkness, a ray of hope flickered. System notification. Mana Seed activated. Endurance 39%, will 39%, strength 39%, dexterity 39%, magic 39%. Kratos gritted his teeth and screamed, channeling the seed nutrient into strength. Instantly, his stats spun wildly. Endurance 21%, will 23%, strength 94%, dexterity 21%, mana 22%. But he felt it still wouldn't be enough to break free. He roared, going all in. The system announced stat changes. Endurance 10%, will 10%, strength 155%, dexterity 10%, mana 10%. Kratos' body felt pumped, full of energy, each muscle fiber erupting with power. He slammed both hands into the ground and strained to pull himself up. On the ground, amid the wasteland, the earth suddenly split open, a bloodied arm thrust upward. Then the whole figure of Kratos rose to his feet, his eyes blazing like twin torches. Opposite him stood Planus, a brutal foe as huge as a living mountain. He froze, bellowing, "Kratos, you were alive down there?" Kratos gave a cold laugh, voice dripping contempt. "Did I leave my face out on display for you to see, you dog?" Seeing the Demon Lord's return, the crowd erupted and cheered. "The Demon King lives. Our Demon King has returned. The harvest will be bountiful because of him." The shouts reverberated through the air. A little dragon darted forward, crying out, "Bobby-a, baby-a," then nuzzled Kratos' cheek, 2 sparkling tears streaming down. Hartok lay waving on the ground, looked up at Kratos, and exhaled in relief. But on the other side, Sergei, battered and wounded, was worried Planus was too strong. Ball, leaning against Planus' vines, also wondered, can the Demon King really win? Planus looked down, voice full of scorn. "Actually, this is even better. Right here, right now, I'll kill you and every one of your followers." Kratos stared him dead in the eye and said firmly, "No, you won't lay a hand on any of us." He thought to himself that no matter how massive Planus was, his movements were still game-like. As long as he watched and saw that an attack's arc was larger than usual, he could dodge it. The peasants were no pushovers either. He immediately shouted, "Everyone line up behind me, prepare to train." At once, the peasants formed neat ranks behind Kratos. When Planus' vine lashed down, he yelled, "Jump to the right." The whole unit leapt in unison, easily avoiding the strike. Planus angrily unleashed another blow. Kratos shouted, "Fly to the left." The soldiers obeyed and again evaded the attack. He signaled to duck, and they all bent down, narrowly avoiding the next strike. Commands rang out in succession. Roll to the left, keep rolling, slam your hands on the ground, brace, then jump. The whole team moved in rhythm and dodged every one of Planus' attacks. He roared in fury, "Damn it! What the hell is going on? Why can't I hit them?" Kratos stepped back, lowered his center of gravity, thinking, Planus' recovery is very slow, this is our chance. He turned to the peasants and shouted, "Turn!" The unit spun around, he pointed at Planus, and yelled, "You idiots! You worthless pieces of trash, get the hell out of here." The taunt drove Planus into a rage. He howled, and countless vines erupted from the ground in a berserk frenzy. Kratos smiled, thinking, "Right, this berserk state is what I've been waiting for. Now it's time to use practical logic to take him down." He turned to the little dragon and shouted, "Go! T-bong!" The dragon shot upward and lunged straight at Planus, gaping its mouth to draw in a great gulp of air. then unleashed an icy breath blasting straight into the opponent's face. Planus froze, his body beginning to tremble from the cold, the plummeting temperature causing tissues and vessels to contract and become brittle. The giant branches started cracking and splitting with sickening snaps. Planus panicked, his massive arms fell to the ground, producing horrendous crashes. Kratos thought to himself that this berserk monster couldn't hold on much longer and would self-destruct. A cunning smile crept across his face as he watched the great arms shatter one by one and tumble like rotten dry branches. Planus roared in fury. "What's happening to me?" Panic flashed in his red eyes, his colossal body trembling as if about to collapse. After unleashing the icy breath, the little dragon, exhausted, flew back to Kratos, nuzzled into his arms, panting, eyes shimmering. Though battered, Kratos gently stroked the dragon's head and murmured, "Well done." He lifted his head, while burning in his gaze, staring straight at Planus, his voice low but resolute. "Leave the final blow to me." Kratos lowered his center of gravity, feet digging into the cracked earth, took a deep breath, funneled all remaining strength into his body, and sprang powerfully into the air, his hand forming a fist, eyes cold and fixed ahead. An idea flashed through his mind. The weakness of this tree is the wooden eye socket in its chest. With that resolve, Kratos charged forward and unleashed a devastating punch into the wooden eye socket on Planus's chest. The blow exploded with the force of a mountain hitting a cliff, shattering the eye socket in an instant. A colossal crack spread across Planus's chest as if his body were being torn apart. Planus howled. His pained scream echoed through the air. The giant body began to fragment, pieces of bark raining down like a storm. Witnessing this, Zephyrs, clutching the little dragon alongside Flute, looked up with eyes glittering with hope. "Demon King, he did it!" But at that moment, the system coldly announced in Kratos' head, "The seed nutrient training time has ended." His body suddenly lost its strength and fell to the ground like a kite with a snapped string. He gritted his teeth, struggling to support himself and not collapse, breathing heavily. Meanwhile, Planus, though his body was unraveling, shrieked violent screams, his blood-red eyes slowly closing, then going completely still. Zephyrs, seeing that, furrowed his brow and muttered, "His face is gone. Has he died?" Immediately after, Planus's massive body collapsed to the ground, producing a horrific seismic shock. Though exhausted, Kratos still raised his head and sighed. Strange, inside the game his body would disintegrate and vanish. Why is he still here? Suddenly, a sense of unease tightened Kratos' brows. Beneath Planus, sharp vines unexpectedly surged up from the ground, weaving together like living veins, coiling tightly and forming a new body. Watching Sergei's terrified face, Kratos lay on the ground, fists clenched, cursing inwardly. "God damn it, what now? I don't even have the strength to move anymore." After a moment of reconstruction, the small branches fused into a complete body for Planus. He stood towering, his eyes blazing with madness, and the crowd of peasants gritted their teeth, faces drained of color. Planus looked directly at Kratos, his voice low but commanding. "I absorbed a large amount of nutrients at the moment of near death and concentrated part of that power to create this body. I was once a seed thrown into a rotten swamp, growing into a cursed sapling, and now, after absorbing the strength from the Demon King's domain, my mission is to drown this world in toxin." He swung his arm, unleashing a terrifying punch toward Kratos, roaring, "Die, Kratos!" Just as the giant arm was about to connect, Baal charged forward, swinging his massive axe and chopping straight at Planus's head. The powerful slash only left a small scratch on the opponent's neck. Baal ground his teeth in stunned disbelief, and Planus immediately swung back forcefully, flinging Baal far away. Sergei didn't hesitate. She drew her sword and lunged, delivering countless sharp strikes at Planus's neck, but he still stood firm. He turned and delivered a heavy punch to Sergei's gut, knocking her to the ground. Hartok dove from above, clenching his fist and striking Planus's neck hard, but it caused no damage. Planus grabbed Hartok by the head, slammed him into the ground, and roared, "You bastards!" Just when it seemed all attacks were useless, countless small tears appeared on Planus's neck, and his head began to wobble. Azurat behind them gritted his teeth and shouted, "May the harvest be plentiful." He lunged forward and swung his blade hard at Planus's neck. The sharp blade cut cleanly, The head separated from the body and rolled to the ground. The moment Planus's head detached from his body began to dissolve, turning into glittering particles, and the vines melted away into the wind. The colossal form vanished, leaving the space eerily silent. In the sky, small blue specks, the nutrients Planus had absorbed hovered slowly down, returning life to the land. Kratos, exhausted, exhaled and muttered, "Those guys did it." Everyone from Baal, Sergei, Hartok to Azurat had to fight to their limits to bring him down. Zephyr stepped forward, his tone solemn. "Regarding the aforementioned acts of treason, I hereby confirm and record the victory of the Demon King's forces." Hearing this, Hartok, trembling, still raised his hand and shouted loudly, "Demon King Kratos." The peasants responded in unison, "Demon King Kratos, Kratos's golden harvest." The cheers rang out, echoing across the space. But Kratos, his body battered, gritted his teeth and forced himself to stand, shouting, "Stop! I said stop." His authoritative voice silenced the crowd. The space fell utterly quiet. He glanced at the potato field before them, now nothing but a desolate, lifeless patch of land. His eyes narrowed, thoughtful. Then he lowered his head and sighed. "The whole field's ruined. We'll have to start from scratch again." The thought twisted his heart. Do they have to go hungry once more? After all that effort, must we really begin again from zero? He gritted his teeth, blaming himself, vowing never to let them suffer so hard again. Those around him watched Kratos in silence, who still bowed his head to the ground, as if searching for an answer amid the wreckage. Suddenly, the small blue lights in the sky began to descend. When one speck of light touched a withered leaf, the leaf trembled as if breathed to life. A new vitality spread across the field, filling it with hope. A sudden memory surfaced. A damp, dark prison. Among hollow, life-drained demons, a thought entered the boy's mind. "I just heard from the livestock keeper. He said they replaced the Demon King a few days ago, right?" Little Zephyrs, gaunt in ragged clothes, curled in a corner of the cell with empty eyes. He numbly thought, "So what? Whoever the Demon King is, we're still livestock." At that moment, a burly demon guard appeared behind the bars, eyes blazing, breath puffing and startling everyone. He drove a key into the lock and pushed the door open with a nudge, and the wretched demons in the cell immediately panicked and scrambled backward. Screams echoed. The demon guard suddenly stopped, noticing a stubborn kid Zephyr sitting motionless, a stark contrast to the jostling crowd behind him. He seized Zephyr by the collar, yanked him up and brandished a large blade. But despite the guard's brutal actions, Zephyr showed no fear, his face blank as if his soul had been drained. The guard, irritated, swung his sword, and as the cold blade was about to fall, Kratos suddenly appeared, clamping the guard's head, and coolly snapped his neck like pulling a weed, sending the large body crashing down. Zephyr was flung aside as well. Kratos casually tossed the head back without a second glance. He stood over Zephyr, his towering figure looming over the small body. He asked coldly, "Why didn't you tremble? Why didn't you kneel and beg for your life?" Zephyr looked him straight in the eye and calmly replied, "Because I wasn't afraid. On the contrary, I felt relieved. No matter how hard you try, livestock have no future. The best choice is to shorten the time spent trembling in fear and wait for death." Kratos curled a lip in amusement. "You're different from the others." Then he suddenly ordered, "Come with me. I appoint you the new historian of the demon clan." Saying that, he turned away without watching Zephyr's reaction and added, "Someone like you would be wasted as food. Besides, in the time ahead, we'll still eat demons like livestock." Little Zephyr scrambled up and stared after Kratos's retreating back in confusion. In that instant, Kratos made a declaration the boy would never forget. "One day, I, Demon King Kratos, will end the tragedy of devouring my own kind." Zephyr's eyes were no longer hollow. They glowed with hope and fierce vitality. The memory ended, returning to the present. Zephyr stood dazed, looking toward Kratos. His Demon King bowed to the ground, blaming himself helplessly for failing to save the field, the labor, and the sweat of his people. Zephyr pressed his lips together, said nothing, and turned back to face Kratos. He bent down and picked up the hoe from the ground, an action that drew Hotball and Sergei's attention. Zephyr offered no explanation or comfort. He simply began to quietly hoe the soil under everyone's astonished gaze. Hartok furrowed his brow and watched in silence, then turned to the farming unit and ordered sternly, "Farming unit, What are you standing around for? Move your hands. Level the soil flat and line up the rows. Flute and the rest of the farming crew showed no fear but blazing determination, all hoisting hoes and shovels high, charging toward Zephyr's with fierce spirit. The sight stunned Kratos for a moment, watching the farming unit enthusiastically cultivate the land with bright, joyful chants. They cried in unison, "Up, up, up, plow the land, plow the land." Furrows steadily appeared beneath the steady rhythm of their hoes. Kratos' sweat fell like rain as he shouted up, up, the song echoing across the fields, igniting his resolve and fighting spirit. Kratos quickly recovered his composure and barked orders. Squad 1, search for any patches with surviving potatoes. Squad 2, line up with hoes. Sergei cut any remaining potato seed pieces, and Zephyr's helped wipe the blades. Hartok led Squad 1, and Azurat fetched tools as a sign. Moments later, Kratos tilted his head back, took a deep breath, and shouted the familiar rallying cry, praying for a bountiful harvest. The entire force raised their hoes and shovels together. Ball bit down on the pull rope, pouring all his strength into hauling Sergei and a dozen others suspended in midair. 10 muscular men braced their feet on the rope, their hands swinging hoes into the earth at an unbelievable speed, productivity pushed to the extreme. Seeing that scene, Kratos felt a surge of emotion. This was truly farming brilliance, pests, rising prices, climate change, battling every foe, failing then turning the soil over again. Survival itself was war. Little Flutee nearby widened her eyes. When she spotted a tender green sprout pushing through the dirt, joy welled up in her heart. This potato sprout was still alive. She scampered over, grasped the sprout, and pulled with all her might, murmuring words of encouragement. Despite Raster beside her moaning and begging, Flute kept tugging until her whole body trembled, face flushed, yet the sprout wouldn't budge. Why won't this thing come out? At that moment, a large hand suddenly joined hers on the sprout. Azurat appeared behind her and said coldly, "Hold tight, low-ranking imp," then counted 1, 2, 3. The potato sprout popped free from the ground under their combined pull. Flutee and Azurat stood dumbfounded, eyes wide, mouths agape, as the pulled sprout came up with long roots and several hefty potatoes attached. A potato so large it flattened Raster's head, leaving him staring in astonishment. Azurat gaped and shouted, "What the hell is this?" Flutee's eyes sparkled. She grinned from ear to ear and eagerly called out, "Your Majesty the Demon King." Kratos turned around and saw the girl running up clutching the giant potato, excitedly shouting, "Look, it's a huge potato." Kratos, surprised, took the potato from Flutee, eyes wide, and asked, "Is this real? Where did you find it?" Flutee replied happily, "I just pulled up a sprout over there and the whole bunch came up." Kratos looked at the potato as big as his embrace, immediately recalling a similar scene in the game. When you defeat a boss, a small sprout rising from its corpse meant nutrients had soaked deep into the soil, which explained why the potato had grown so huge now. Thinking this, he excitedly ordered, "Farming unit, stop what you're doing and dig down deep right now." The farming unit immediately complied, and within moments unearthed countless giant potatoes. Everyone gasped in astonishment. "So big! It's incredible!" Everyone hugged the round potatoes, lifting them high into the air and cheering in joyous excitement. Zephyr's quietly asked, "Demon King, is this a bountiful harvest?" Kratos smiled softly, silently thanked the heavens, then replied slowly, "Yes." He was so moved he burst into tears and shouted, "This is a bountiful harvest, everyone will eat their fill." In the Demon King's dungeon, Kratos sat on a wooden chair, chin in hand, pondering. Summarized the situation in the wastelands. First star territory, the Demon King's castle. First star, Lord Sathril rebelled and ascended to the heavens. All his minions vanished. Now it's utterly desolate. Second star territory, after Second Lord Planis's defeat. My subordinates are bewildered and don't understand what's going on. Third star territory, Third Lord Raster is now being used as a lightning rod. Should we punish his lackeys for treason? Fourth star territory belongs to Serpent God Tatsu, described in the game as loyal. The remnants in territories 2 and 4 are easier to mobilize, but they can't be gathered at will. Not to mention recruiting more labor, we have to feed them first. Take it slow until the next harvest. Just then, Zephyr stepped forward to report, "Demon King, we've prepared a large quantity of soup as you ordered. Kratos nodded and instructed, "Good. Remember to distribute meal tickets sensibly." Shortly after, a stupid-looking black bat flew in and reported, "Demon King, I have sent wait orders to each region." Kratos suspiciously asked, "Did they obey? I don't trust them anymore." The bat answered, "Region 4 did not comply." Kratos flew into a rage. "Damn it! Why do they keep disobeying?" The bat looked blank and replied, Why? They didn't say anything specific," which made Kratos scowl and snap, "You didn't even ask why? Who did you ask?" Its foolish demeanor drove Kratos insane. He jumped up, grabbed its wing, and shouted, "Are all mid-tier demons that brain dead? I want to know why the fourth lord won't follow orders." The bat screamed in fear. "The fourth star territory now only has a few servants left. It's completely empty." Kratos tightened his grip on the wing, gritted his teeth, and asked again, "Did you ask the servants?" And as usual received a trembling answer. "No," Kratos hissed through his teeth. "So you don't know why it's empty?" The bat's answer remained, "Yes." Furious beyond measure, Kratos cursed inwardly, feeling like he was talking to brain-dead administrative staff. Meanwhile, Zephyrd stood by casually sketching Kratos' scowling face like a dog. Zephyrd couldn't resist taunting. "The Demon King may pretend to be kind, but his face is truly revolting. Even after hundreds or thousands of years, no one would look worse than Demon King Kratos." All while Kratos raged noisily, worried someone might appear suddenly. He tore into the foolish bat. After watching the scene to his fill, Jireh stepped forward, grabbed the bat flattened from the scolding, and spoke to mediate. "I'll talk to it." He asked the servants what they knew and where the fourth lord went. The bat sniffled and answered, "He went to invade human territory, intending to collect corpses to make fertilizer." Kratos froze at that, then immediately went pale, mouth agape, as he stammered, "It's over." He strained his brain to recall. According to the game script, the Holy Knight of old would awaken at this moment. If demons invaded humans, he would destroy them as soon as they appeared. As long as they don't invade, the Holy Knight won't attack. The fact that Saint Knight Kim Chi still hasn't shown up for quite a while means his deduction was correct. But now that the fourth lord is marching on humans, the Holy Knight will surely come. Cold sweat broke out on Kratos' brow. Zephyrd panicked and asked, "Demon King, where are you going?" Seeing their lord bolt out like an arrow, Kratos still managed to answer before leaving. "Stop the fourth lord," Zephyrd asked in horror. "Should we send reinforcements?" Kratos shook his head. "Going alone is the fastest." Running at full speed, Kratos calculated. After defeating Brenus, the mana seed had leveled up to 4. He poured all nutrients into agility. Other stats like endurance, mental strength, physical power, and magic dropped to 10%, while agility skyrocketed to 160%. Kratos had only one thought: take the shortcut and use every means to get there as fast as possible. Before long, he arrived in the demon's abandoned lands, near the Tower of Life, the Holy Knight's tomb, a no-man's land where Kim Chi had met Envoy's group and the village of the exiled. Going further down led to the human-demon border, Margrat Fort. At the same time, atop the high human city walls, a lookout peered through his spyglass and suddenly exclaimed, "It's Envoy Azrahan. Where are the soldiers? Why is there only that ugly servant and a group of strange people?" A gray-haired man immediately greeted them. "Thank you, Envoy Azrahan, commander of Margrat Fort." Wolkos asked cautiously, "Where are the troops that came with you?" Azrahan sighed and replied, "We ran into monsters. We suffered heavy losses before even reaching demon territory." Wolkos nodded sadly in sympathy and invited the party into the city to rest. But when Kim Chi tried to enter, Wolkos drew his sword and blocked him. "Not human, no entry." Azrahan and Diol hurriedly intervened. Diol even slyly offered a few gold coins in bribe, but Wolkos slapped him flat on his face and scolded him outright. "You clumsy potato-headed fool. Your descendants will always be like this." Wolkos coldly ordered Kim Chi to remove his cloak. If anything suspicious was found, he'd be executed on the spot. Azrahan flinched, thinking, "Whatever's under that cloak must be hideous." Kim Chi simply stared as Diol held his face. A murderous aura suddenly radiated out, putting Wolkos on alert. Just as the tension peaked, horns blared and cries rang out. A massive demon army was approaching, led by 4th Lord Tatsu. Wolkos abandoned Kim Chi and rushed back to the battle lines. Kim Chi stood frozen, thinking, a real demon. At that moment, An evil spirit at the controls laughed maniacally and ordered a slaughter, freezing Kim Chi in shock. At the same time, Kratos was still sprinting, muttering non-stop prayers. "Please don't attack. Don't attack." The desperate Demon King howled in despair down the endless road. If he failed to stop them, the entire demon race would be annihilated. The Fourth Lord's army was risking everything to push a sharpened wooden ram against the human gate. Command was given, and volleys of arrows rained down like a storm, impaling themselves into the bodies of the demon horde. The demons hurled massive stones in retaliation. Surrounding the gate tightly, the wooden ram had cracked the gate. Kim Chi, Azrahan, and the townspeople huddled in the shelter, listening to the violent impacts from outside, pensive, thinking he had originally intended to rush out and fight on instinct. Perhaps the memories of slaughter from 19 past lives keep repeating, as if fate's hand compels me to fight once more. If Count Azrahan hadn't pulled me back, I would have charged into battle as if it were inevitable, without knowing what I truly wanted. But in this situation, with everyone trembling in fear, I really have to fight. At that moment, a thunderous crash rang out. The gate was rammed and warped by the wooden beam, and the soldiers inside panicked and fled. Azrahan went pale. Dial screamed in terror. "The gate's down!" The doors collapsed and the demon army poured in, roaring for slaughter, turning humans into fertilizer. Wolkos shouted the order to destroy the rear bridge. Subordinates hesitated but were pressed. "We die here rather than let demons advance onto the continent." "Blow the bridge now!" The rear bridge exploded. Azrahan stood stunned, muttering, while Dial shouted in despair, "So we're going to die here? I haven't even married yet." Azrahan reluctantly comforted him. "Don't dwell on that. If you survive, you still won't be able to marry anyone." Dial fumed, vowing to be born a noble in the next life so he could make Azrahan toil forever. Just then, a loud noise sounded right beside them as a serpent demon smashed through the wall. The people panicked and clung to one another. A serpent demon thrust out a razor-sharp claw and seized a little girl. The girl's mother screamed in anguish. Azrahan moved to rush out to save her, but Dial held him back. Kim Chi coldly drew his sword and severed the serpent demon's wrist, saving the girl. Dial was stunned, and Azrahan quickly caught the girl. Outside the shelter, Kim Chi's gray cloak fluttered in the wind. With the city in chaos, Kim Chi flew high to scout, identified the leader as Fourth Lord Tatsu, then descended to intercept him. The sudden appearance startled Tatsu. Despite the gaudy cloak, Kim Chi's presence dominated everything. He arrogantly ordered, "I don't want to fight, stand down." Tatsu sneered back, "You think dressing like that lets you order me? What if I refuse?" Kim Chi calmly said, "I will slaughter your entire tribe." Tatsu said nothing more and swung his blade forward. Kim Chi met him coldly, thinking, "In the end, I still have to fight. I am a demon slayer." He tightened his grip on the staff, ready. Just as Kim Chi was about to strike, Kratos suddenly lunged in and delivered a decisive kick to Tatsu, sending him flying. Kratos panted, sweat pouring down, a chill running down his spine when he met Kim Chi's gaze. After kicking the junior, half afraid and half angry, he stamped a few more times in fury and scolded Tatsu. "You dumb dog! Why invade? Why attack humans?" Tatsu weakly tried to explain but was kicked again. Kratos shouted, "We're living in peace, farming, keeping to ourselves. Wasn't that the plan? Why act on your own?" In his head, Kratos frantically begged, "Please spare me, don't wipe out all demons." The happy images of Hyben and everyone flashed through his mind, then shattered when Kim Chi coldly said, "I know who you are. You are Demon King Kratos, aren't you?" Kratos' face went pale, despair flooding him. This is really the end. The demons around him clustered, whispering at the sight of their king. Kratos trembled, trying to move his lips to protest. "Kratos? What's that? Some kind of operating system?" But Kim Chi coldly asserted, "I'm asking to confirm, not because I don't know." Kratos thought in panic. He knew for certain that if he stayed frozen like this, he'd be killed. At that point, Kratos gritted his teeth and took a desperate risk, suddenly lunging toward Kim Chi, hands hitting the ground, his face strained rather than attack. He bowed his head and slammed it hard into the earth, his two horns driving deep into the soil, stunning his followers. Even Kim Chi was taken aback. The subordinate demons thought it was a new threatening posture. Kim Chi asked, "What are you doing?" Kratos answered sincerely, "This is a grand kowtow ceremony, the deepest way to show gratitude or apology." Demon King Kratos truly had no intention of invading humans. That damn lizard acted on his own, so I rushed here to stop him. But Kimchi still replied coldly, "Do you really think I'd trust a demon's words?" Kratos immediately smashed his head down repeatedly, discarding all royal pride, pleading desperately, "Please believe me. Until these horns wear away, I'll apologize 10 times, even 100 times if necessary." The distant underlings couldn't hear clearly, only saw Kratos' intense posture and grew more excited, praising him inwardly as he tore up the ground like a mad grasshopper. Kratos kept bowing under Kimchi's feet, gritting his teeth and enduring, knowing he might look pitiful but that if he didn't, the entire demon race would be annihilated. As their leader, he was willing to suffer humiliation for his people. A memory suddenly flashed through his mind from childhood, watching his elder brother kneel to the ground, bowing low to apologize to a client to protect the others. At that time, Cetos only tightened his satchel strap, a child who could only cry but do nothing. But from then on he learned that he was willing to accept humiliation for his people. Demon King Kratos kept bowing. The thuds echoed through the silent air. Even as his horns gouged the ground, he did not stop. Having cast aside pride and honor, Kimchi remained unmoved. Only one thought occupied him. "It's useless. I exist to kill you. I'll kill you now. Then the rest of your kind." He raised his staff, ready to strike. But Kratos' continuous headbanging made Kimchi frown, ponder, a familiar feeling rising. 10 times, then 10 more, and then another 10. He suddenly realized the action was very like someone he once knew. Whether it's duty summons, sweeping the demon lands, or even rolling around, it's always 12 beats. Kratos still pleaded desperately, "I'm so sorry. Please spare me." That made Kimchi certain inwardly the tone wasn't like a demon king's but deeply familiar. "You are?" He stood dumbfounded, wondering why a duty summon appeared before him in the form of a demon king. Only then did Kimchi part his lips and say, "Stop." Kratos looked up in astonishment. Kimchi coolly ordered, "Be gone quickly, because I very much want to kill you right now." Hearing that, Kratos was overjoyed, mouth agape, his eyes lighting up as he sprang to his feet, hoisted Tatsu onto his shoulder and shouted, "Thank you. Thank you. I will never forget this favor for the rest of my life." He yelled an order, "Demon King's 4th Army, retreat at once." Everyone immediately withdrew, each telling themselves to run as fast as they could. The demons looked at one another in confusion, not understanding what was happening, but they obediently followed the command. Kratos ran first, carrying Tatsu, his underlings close behind. Kimchi stood still, eyes closed, covering his gaudy outfit with a thick cloak. At that moment, Tatsu, who had been carried by Kratos, suddenly came to, and upon seeing Kimchi's silhouette, went berserk, wrenched himself free from Kratos, and furiously charged at Kimchi from behind. Kratos shouted in panic but couldn't stop him. With a simple flick of his hand, Kimchi shredded forth Lord Tatsu's 2 arms. Tatsu's body fell onto a large rock, blood spraying everywhere, his 2 arms torn off, leaving Kratos stunned, his face ashen. Kimchi looked back coldly, making Kratos' pupils tremble and sweat pour down. He could only think inwardly, "Damn it. This time it's really over." Kimchi said coldly, "It wasn't your fault just now. I know that was his own decision." Hearing that, he froze for a few seconds, at a loss for words. Kimchi turned and walked away, leaving only one sentence behind. "If I see those horns in the human realm again, I'll kill you." The casual yet icy words rendered Kratos completely frozen, speechless. A while later, inside the human castle, Azrahan and Dial rushed over, anxiously asking, "Brother Kimchi, are you all right? You disappeared and we were worried." Kimchi replied, "I just fought a little." Azrahan said in surprise, "Huh, you actually fought those demons?" Wolkos suddenly appeared, respectfully. "This is Kimchi, right? Very different from before." He bowed, hand over his chest, expressing gratitude. "Lord Kimchi, you crushed the demons in the blink of an eye and forced the rest to kneel and beg. Please forgive my earlier rudeness." Azrahan was still wide-eyed in astonishment when Wolkos excitedly shouted, "Everyone, hail Lord Kimchi, who defended our fortress." All the soldiers shouted in unison, "Hail, hail, hail." Kimchi fell silent. He bowed his head and smiled faintly, thinking to himself, "Life 20 at last I've escaped the deadly loop. Even though I still had to kill those 2 just now, I've chosen the path of saving the world. The garish pink dress peeking out left Wolko's and the cheering soldiers speechless. Each of them was pale with shock. At the same time, in the abandoned lands, the Four Lords' domain, Kratos was leading the Fourth Lord's demons back to their territory. Out of breath, he walked wearily, thinking finally we're back. Moving this whole crowd was exhausting. Kratos raised his fist and shouted, "Now get back to your homes or castles. Anyone who dares invade humans again will die. Every last one of you." The demons timidly explained, "We were just following Lord Tatsu's orders." But Kratos snapped, "Enough excuses, return at once." After driving the demons off, Kratos trudged along the road, annoyed as he walked, thinking that if he followed the game's intended progression, he couldn't exploit glitches or take shortcuts. What a massive time sink. He just wanted to get home to supervise the royal potato garden. Seeing an abandoned well by the roadside, he silently wished those wells still worked so travel wouldn't be so tiring. They were supposed to be a power-up and teleport system, but every one he'd checked was broken. Leaning on the well's rim, Kratos gloomily figured they weren't active because he wasn't the Holy Knight. Suddenly, the well emitted a strange blue light. A system notification appeared. Due to encountering the Holy Knight, a new game system unlocked. The abandoned well teleport was now available. Kratos was sucked into the well, his body twisting as he drifted through a strange space. The system asked, "All wells you've visited are activated. Where would you like to go?" Overjoyed, Kratos chose the Demon King's castle. The system instantly teleported him to the castle's basement. The moment he appeared, Kratos' scream echoed out. In the castle garden, Azurat stood with a wooden staff in helplessness. "This one is broken too, we should give up." Flutie dug and pleaded, begging for just one intact farming tool. At that instant, a flash of blue light burst where the girl was digging. Kratos' face suddenly emerged from the ground. He immediately sprang up, throwing his head back and howling. Flutie was so frightened, she fell backward and fainted. Azurat turned around to see little Flutie motionless while the Demon King was smacking his lips. Ahem! Then Kratos vomited a glob of rainbow goo onto Azurat. To shield Flutie, Azurat dumped the goo to the ground while Kratos panted, complaining that his stomach felt like it was doing somersaults. He muttered that teleporting was nothing like the smooth experience in the game. Flutie ran back to Azurat in tears, while Kratos calmly wiped his mouth, cheerfully thinking that puking his breakfast to get here was worth it. Now it was time to start mass-producing huge potatoes immediately. Later, in the storage house, Kratos looked at the gigantic pile of potatoes in awe, still terrifying even now. Zephyrts reported, "Lord Hartok's mist has cleansed them." Kratos silently picked up one potato, wondering why this tuber kept rolling. After a few seconds, he suddenly realized the shocking truth and shouted, "No, for fuck's sake." He dove in and ripped through the pile of potatoes, shouting, "It's not here. Not this one either, they're all gone." Zephyrts asked anxiously, "Is something wrong?" Kratos answered in despair, "These giant potatoes have no eyes to sprout." Zephyrts hesitantly asked, "No eyes means they can't sprout?" Kratos confirmed bitterly, "Right. These potatoes are sterile." After that, at the Demon King's castle base, Kratos announced to everyone, "Even if we grow giant potatoes, there's nothing to harvest." Hartok analyzed, "Their traits have been altered, they're mutated plants that lost reproductive ability." Ball asked dumbfounded, "So they can't be eaten?" Kratos cut him off, "No, they're still edible, but once they're gone, you can't replant them." He added thoughtfully, "We can't rely on potatoes forever. Potatoes are disease-prone. One infection and it's all lost. We have to grow something else." Azurat wondered, "What else can be grown in this land besides potatoes?" Kratos replied coldly, "Nothing at all, but I know a place with countless seeds. The human lands." Everyone was surprised. Ball shouted excitedly, "That's invasion!" But Sergei snapped back, "You're the one who hates war the most, Demon King." Kratos paid no attention and gave orders. "Zephyrts, make dried potatoes right away, use them as currency. Stay to assist Hartok in managing the planting team. As for Azurat, Ball, and Sergei, you'll go with me to sell dried potatoes to humans to raise money to buy seeds." He thought to himself that as long as he didn't run into kimchi, it would be fine. There's always a way to turn things around. Kratos sat in the center, silently watching everyone. Zephyrts muttered in protest, "Are you seriously going to sell dried potatoes to humans? Have you lost your mind?" Kratos replied coldly, "Explain to me why I should listen to your nonsense." Zephyrts wouldn't back down. He pointed at the group below, emphasizing the 3 great demon generals assigned to go with them. Facing Baal's course, misshapen face looking no different than a monster, then Azurat's cruel, homicidal expression. To humans, they'd be walking danger signs. That guy looked like a serial killer, his skin blotchy like a graphics glitch. Even Sergei's half-covered face was no exception. The last one looked like a half-man, half-octopus freak with diarrhea, pale as if just defrosted from a freezer. Zephyrts concluded nonchalantly, if humans saw them, they'd scream demons and attack on sight. After saying that, Sergei grabbed him and shoved him before Azurat's blade as a sacrifice. Zephyrts calmly responded, I'm just telling the truth, think sensibly. Azurat snapped back angrily, we're always reasonable weaklings, so killing people now is completely reasonable. At that moment, Baal piped up, Zephyrts is right about one thing, everyone looks gross. I'm the handsome one here. Azurat couldn't hold back and kicked, oh, shut up. You're the most demonic one here, Hartok interjected smugly. Besides me being a gentleman, the rest all look the same. Azurat remarked with disgust. You mean like mummies? Sergei taunted smugly. You all smell like rotten fish. No need to compete. The other 2 immediately turned to attack her. Azurat snapped. Shut up, you intestinal wench. Hartok sneered and pointed. Don't you realize you're the weirdest? Half man, half octopus. Before Kratos lay a chaotic brawl among the demon lords, and he thought wearily that everyone was so touchy and obsessed with looks sometimes he even felt sorry for them. He raised a hand to stop them. Stop, thinking maybe a joke would ease the tension. On the surface he wore a smile he meant as friendly, but it made his face look terrifying, like he was about to massacre them. He softened his tone. Don't fight, none of us are attractive enough to show off outside anyway. The noisy demon lords fell silent at that smile. Kratos thought, quiet like that should do the trick. He turned to Zephyrts. Did you bring what I told you to fetch from the secret tunnel in Sathril Castle? Zephyrts nodded and brought out a tray covered with a red cloth, on which squirmed a mass of wriggling creatures, looking like worms, chittering and drooling. Sergei gasped. What the hell are these? One of them panicked and jumped up. Kratos grinned wickedly. These are transformation pills, eat one, and you'll turn into another creature. We'll use them to disguise ourselves and enter human territory. Sergei and Azurat froze. She asked in horror, you're really making us eat this? Kratos replied nonchalantly, did you think I brought them to look at? Baal didn't hesitate, he grabbed a pill and shouted, I'm not picky, then tossed it into his mouth, chewing and yelling, terrible. The others shuddered. You ate it thinking it's tasty? Suddenly Baal's body began to glow. Kratos watched anxiously. The transformation reflects the eater's deepest desire. A thick smoke rose, and from within came Baal's astonished voice. When the smoke cleared, an incredibly handsome male face appeared. Baal clasped his face and muttered, feels so different. Kratos recalled, transformation pills are souls compressed from flesh, single use. The form reflects the eater's true desire. Seeing that, Sergei boldly grabbed a pill. Thick smoke rose again, and when it cleared, she had become a proud centaur. Zephyrts quietly handed Sergei a mirror to look at. She looked and burst into disappointed sobs. Ice Emperor Sergei, the demon who wanted a warm heart. Over there. Baal helped Kratos shove a pill into Azurat's mouth. When the smoke cleared, a pelican appeared. Azurat spread his wings and shouted, Ha! Azurat the Blood Prince, who longs for freedom after years as a lightning rod. Kratos nervously popped a pill himself, and smoke billowed thickly. Looking in the mirror, he realized he looked much the same as before and thought, well, that should do. Seeing his 2 subordinates transformed into beasts, he told himself, just pretend I look like someone with liver failure. All right, march. Seed Reconnaissance Squad. Move out. They set off, the 2 tall ones leading the way, followed by a centaur and a pelican pulling the cart. At that moment, a notification popped up before Kratos. While using transformation pills, you will not receive any benefits from happiness points. Kratos snorted resignedly, realizing the transformation pills had too many limitations. He carefully recalled the game. Using skills or taking damage would immediately revert you to your original form, so you must be extremely careful even when using abandoned wells. The group quickly teleported to human lands. Fortunately, they could teleport as a group if they held hands. They landed in a barren desert and headed together to meet Sister Hugh. Kratos stopped first, carefully scanning the surroundings, worried about how to get through the deep gorge ahead. Beyond it stood an ancient fortress, and he secretly feared most of all encountering Kimchi. Kimchi showing up here would mean he had pushed deep into human territory. Kratos tried to reassure himself that enough time had passed that Kimchi had probably left this area. He still couldn't stop worrying, wondering if they'd be recognized. They had no choice but to quickly collect seeds. Just then, a trumpet alarm sounded from the stronghold and guards shouted to one another, suspecting a band of strangers approaching. More demons? I don't think so, but they look really ill. A guard commented about Kratos' pale face. Wolkos emerged from the city, calmly assessed the group, then said slowly, "You lot must be from the exiled village. Go back. You don't have the right to pass this gate." Sergei and Azurat, in their beast forms behind him, both frowned. Kratos understood the reason demons had recently invaded, so no one was allowed to pass. But he was also a veteran gamer who had devoured the storyline logs and knew every game setting by heart. Kratos looked Wolkos squarely in the eye, put on a fake smile and lowered his voice flatteringly. "Even an exile like me can bring back treasures from the demon domain." Wolkos startled. "Treasures? You mean those things behind you?" Kratos pointed to the two beast forms and didn't hesitate to fabricate. "Yes. Exactly. These are monsters I captured in demon territory. They'll make excellent meat." Sergei and Azurat froze, unable to react, then immediately realized and stood stunned for a few seconds. Wolkos asked skeptically, "You captured them in demon territory? They just look like pelicans and camels. You intend to present such ordinary animals to the king?" Hearing that, the three were all astonished. Kratos couldn't believe in this context that camels and pelicans were common livestock. Wolkos coldly waved them off. "Useless things, take them away immediately." Sergei suddenly screamed crazily, a sound that made Wolkos exclaim in surprise. "That pronunciation is clearly human, it's not an ordinary camel." Recognizing the opportunity, Kratos grabbed Sergei's head, praising her non-stop, then turned to Azurat. "Hey, cry now." When he didn't comply, Kratos plucked a handful of Azurat's feathers, causing him to scream in pain. Wolkos was delighted. "Approved, go on in." The group silently rejoiced and followed him. But Wolkos continued, "Even if you possess rare creatures, you are still descendants of the exiled and cannot move freely within the kingdom. Right now there are envoys heading to the capital. Travel with them." Kratos was irritated inside but could do nothing. From inside came cheers. "Good news, since nothing was collected from demon lands. We're glad to have you." Two members of the envoy bowed formally to Kratos and Baal. "I am Royal Envoy Elbiha Azrahan, and this is my attendant Frontera." Kratos replied politely, "Pleased to meet you. I'm from the village of the exiled. I'm Sirios Kim Jangcheol, and this is my friend." Baal quietly repeated, "From the exile village." Frontera frowned. "That name." Immediately after, Elbiha said in a shocking tone, "I've been there for months and never met you." The soldiers behind reacted at once, shouting, "Show yourself, you're a demon, aren't you?" Kratos cursed inwardly in anger. Frontera quickly defused the situation, pretending to be forgetful as he reminded Elbiha, "Look closely, it's the second house on the left." Elbiha hesitated. "Which left?" Frontera seized the moment to whisper, "Just bring them along, we'll have something to present to the king." Elbiha worried, "What if they're demons?" Frontera insisted, "Impossible, never." Only then did Elbiha relax and hurriedly correct himself. "Ah yes, since we didn't talk much I completely forgot about you. Right, you were there." Kratos had picked up on their exchange and calculated inwardly. "That potato-faced guy is pragmatic, I can use him." Meanwhile Frontera flashed a finger signal, thinking nothing good. "That sick-looking one, I'll squeeze him dry and throw him to the dogs." Elbiha, unaware of the two men's schemes, cheerfully continued, "Stop chatting, let's get going. One more member will join us later." He pointed to the newcomer. "This is Mr. Kim Chi, who kindly offered to escort us." The moment Kratos saw Kim Chi, a cold sweat broke out over his whole body. Kim Chi shot a cold glance in his direction. Kratos trembled as he greeted, "Hello, I'm Kim Jangcheol," while inwardly screaming, "Oh shit, I'm done for." But Kim Chi casually remarked, "It seems your liver isn't doing well, take care of your health." Kratos was stunned by that reminder, while Elbiha enthusiastically led the party away with Kim Chi. "The capital is far, let's move." Behind them, Kratos breathed a sigh of relief and wondered, "He didn't recognize me? The transformation pills really work." But up ahead, Kim Chi glanced coldly back at him. That night, by the campfire, Kratos couldn't stop worrying. his mind spinning with thoughts. Too dangerous. If we meet bandits or get jumped and the transformation effect breaks, Kim Chi will kill me on the spot. He couldn't help glancing at Kim Chi, thinking again, the capital is so far, just sell the potatoes and buy seeds. No need to travel that far. At that moment, Kim Chi glared at him. Kratos was frightened into a cold sweat, pretended to wave the incident away, then quickly turned away, clutching his pounding heart. A thought flashed: he had to run, he had to escape tonight. Late at night, with Kratos and Azurat shivering outside the tent, Kratos quietly called to Baal. "Wake up, hurry." Baal just mumbled, "You need a full 8 hours to be healthy." Kratos shot back immediately, "You stopped maturing a century ago." The two of them quickly slipped over to the two shivering beast forms. Sergei, seeing his haste, asked, "Where are we going in the middle of the night?" Kratos was slightly surprised. "You can talk." Sergei nodded. "Of course, I'm just slow to warm up to speaking." Kratos immediately laid out his reasoning. "Why linger with that trouble? We've passed the checkpoint, now we just need to finish the objective. If we get exposed, it will be a huge problem." At that moment, a cold voice rang out. "Who are you?" Under the moonlight, Kim Chi stood ready, sword in hand, his gaze both cold and indifferent fixed on Kratos' group. He was scared nearly off his feet. At the same time, in the wasteland, Hartok and Gepard watched the scene. A large host of demons massed before them. Hartok asked coldly, "What is this? Who authorized your assembly?" A demon answered, "The Demon King is here. We heard we'd get a full meal." Hartok had a headache, unable to understand why bringing seeds back for the Demon King resulted in so much food. Then a loud shout came from nearby. A group of tree demons dragged themselves forward, their leader pleading urgently, "Lord Hartok, please let us in. Planis's rebellion has nothing to do with us." Before he could answer, another crowd, lizard god demons, also arrived, wailing for help. "We've come a long way. We're all near starvation." Hartok and the Zephyrs were surrounded by the unruly troops, everyone crying out for food. Hartok asked the Zephyrs, "How many giant potatoes are left?" Zephyrs replied, "A lot, but we'll have to hold out for some time." Hartok recalled Kratos' instruction, "While I'm away, you are the Demon King." He regained his composure, organized and sorted things out, arranged matters satisfactorily, and promised to feed them. On the human side, Kratos was still frozen, staring at Kim Chi. Kim Chi asked coldly, "Speak, who exactly are you?" "Kim Jang-cheol," Kratos stammered, trembling. Baal behind him, puzzled, leaned in and whispered, "Why are you shaking? I'll smash him if you order it." The more Kratos heard, the more panicked he became. He hurriedly whispered a warning, "Don't fight recklessly. Look closely at that Kim Chi. Do you think you can handle him?" Kim Chi stood there silently, waiting for an answer. Baal snorted at Kim Chi. Baal snorted, "Actually, at first I found Kim Chi pretty intimidating too." At that moment, Kim Chi suddenly said, "I can hear everything." Those words sent a chill down Kratos' spine. Kim Chi fell silent, wondering inwardly. Lazy summoning duty and the Demon King Kim Jang-cheol. He once dragged me into a killing loop. Now he seeks peace. What are his true intentions? Why has he come all the way here? What's really on his mind? Kratos then spoke up. "The truth is, we didn't come here to pay tribute to the king." Kim Chi looked surprised by that answer, but Kratos continued, "As you can see, our land is food scarce, so we must find ways to farm. On the cart behind us are specialties from my homeland." Then he said plainly, "We came to sell dried potatoes and buy seeds to plant. That's why we tried to leave quietly so we wouldn't get caught. The royal capital is too far. We only planned to go to the nearest city." He put on a frightened look and pleaded earnestly, "I'm truly sorry. Please understand, we're just too poor and starving." Kratos kept calculating in his head, aiming for Kim Chi's sympathy to smooth things over. Kim Chi studied him intently, his eyes probing. Kratos tensed up under that stare. Kim Chi reached a conclusion. Those eyes are hiding something, but they're not lying. With that thought, Kim Chi mused, "So the demons have started eating humans because of lack of food?" Finally, he let go of the tension, but remained firm. "That sounds plausible, but I can't let you go. Azrahan guaranteed you would present tribute to the king. I can't disappoint him. However, the agreement is this. Stop along the way, sell the potatoes and buy seeds, but you still must continue on to the royal capital." Kim Chi suddenly mentioned Sergei and Azurat, startling them both. As agreed, Those two beasts will be offered to the king. Kratos didn't hesitate to betray his subordinates. Yes, gladly. Those things are like trash in my village. Sergei and Azurat were terrified, thinking to themselves, he's not joking. In truth, Kratos had a plan to run away. He was only waiting to get the seeds before bolting. The next morning on the road, Azrahan cheerfully asked Ball, "You planning to sell the dried potatoes along the way? Let me see what they look like." Kratos nodded in agreement and pulled back the cart's cover. Nothing special, just potatoes a bit larger than usual. Cooked. Here. Behold. Azrahan wasn't very surprised. While Frontera gaped, Azrahan sincerely said, "Good luck with your trade." Frontera panicked. "Young master, he's pointing at that pile of potatoes." Greed suggested using that pile as an offering. Kratos feigned surprise. "They're just ugly potatoes, how could you offer them to the king?" Frontera insisted. "They're huge as hell." Kratos sneered. "If size mattered most, the tallest person would be king." Azrahan chimed in jokingly. "Looks like he's happy because they remind him of himself." Frontera ground his teeth in anger. "One day I'll be rich and make you eat shit." Kratos watched the two of them walk away, thinking, maybe that potato-headed guy was right, the potatoes are odd. Perhaps the king will reward them, but escaping kimchi remained more important. Before being exposed, he had to get out of there as soon as possible. Just then, Azrahan exclaimed, "Oh, there it is!" The merchant city Japarakia appeared ahead, a massive metropolis. At the inn, thanks to Azrahan's encouragement, both Kratos and Ball were given rooms, and Kimchi's group was arranged as well. Only poor Sergei and Azurat had to sleep on the floor, and the monsters need not be mentioned. Looking at the dim room with two small beds, Kratos thought, in a bustling trade city, how could there be empty rooms this shabby? But he didn't care. He led the group to carry out their first task, selling the dried potatoes. Azurat took the chance to probe, "Are you really going to hand us over to the king?" Kratos answered bluntly, "Of course not, you're my valuable lightning rod." Azurat was surprised. "Huh, I thought that job was over? Just a furlough, you'll have to go back to work soon." Sergei was on guard. "Something's off here, the human market is usually bustling, but this place is eerier and emptier than where the demons were." Kratos looked around and noticed the oddness too, but decided to press on anyway. He laid the potatoes out along the roadside and loudly hawked, "Huge dried potatoes, 1 for 20 gold, 2 for 30, come choose." He even tried to advertise, "These taste better than your ex." Ball protested in a low voice. "This is humiliating. Is this really our demon king?" Kratos snapped in annoyance. "Shut up, we need to eat. Okay? What's there to be ashamed of?" He continued yelling his pitch. Demons had once resorted to cannibalism to survive. If they could escape that fate by enduring this shame, they should be grateful. Those words surprised Ball, but he quickly understood and joined Kratos in calling out, "Choose quickly, everyone." He then turned boldly to the two beast forms and barked, "You two, why aren't you delivering?" Sergei froze, and Azurat rose to protest Kratos' exploitation. He took a sheepish kick from Sergei and felt sorry for himself. Usually, when people cross over from the modern world to a fantasy one, they sell modern goods like ice cream or recipes and strike it rich instantly. But for Kratos, it was just these huge potatoes. Hoping to sell a lot was overly optimistic. Still, the group was wildly enthusiastic, forming a human pillar and cheering for victory. That's why they had to give it their all. Thinking of that, Kratos remembered the image of a shivering old woman by the roadside in the modern world, deeply understanding the struggle to make a living. At that moment, someone stepped forward and asked, "Excuse me, are you really selling these for only 20 gold each?" Kratos inwardly cheered and replied aloud, "Yes, of course, if you buy two." No sooner had he spoken than he was astonished to realize the stall was packed. People shouted, "Give me 4. Me too, sell me 6, 10. The sight terrified Kratos. All this for potatoes? Sergei and Azurat, atop him, were calmer and quickly urged, "Don't stand there like statues. Ball, start selling." Ball responded enthusiastically, "Yes, the Demon King's plan works again." Kratos hurried to collect himself and stammered, Right?" In the market, he loudly commanded, "Line up, everyone one at a time." Seeing the pouch of coins filling, he smiled in satisfaction. "We just sold a third in an instant. If word spreads, we could sell out by tomorrow." He excitedly told the demon generals. For great demon generals, Wait at the inn aisle, go buy seeds, and be right back. The whole group made a gesture of blessing and shouted together for an abundant harvest. But at another stall, the seller eyed Credos suspiciously and asked, "You want to buy seeds? Are you kidding?" He reacted in surprise. "What do you mean?" The owner replied calmly, "You can't buy seeds in this city." Credos asked again, "What do you mean by that?" The man explained, "Most of the food and seeds have already been bought up by the major merchant guilds." He asked further, "Exactly where are they located?" Before the owner could answer, he suddenly seemed to spot something, then pointed off in the distance. "Over there. Ask that person." A nobleman appeared with numerous soldiers behind him and called out, "Excuse me, were you the one who sold the giant potato at the fountain earlier?" Credos stammered in reply, "Yes, that was me. What about it?" The man introduced himself. "I am Ruslin, secretary of the Richmond Merchants Guild, responsible for all guild matters." Credos thought to himself that this must be the big guild the other man mentioned. Ruslin offered, "I'll buy all your potatoes at 20% above the market price." At that proposal, Credos fell silent to consider, then asked, "First, tell me how much for a pinch of cabbage seeds?" Ruslin answered with a smug look, "About 100 gold coins per year." Hearing that price, Credos narrowed his eyes, thinking it was sky high. At most, it should be no more than 50 gold coins. The Richmond Guild was truly speculating, controlling supply, hoarding goods, squeezing the market dry. The run-down inns, the moribund market, the desperate people out there, all caused by them. Even selling all his potatoes wouldn't buy seeds, but no one forbade him from finding another way. With that thought, Credos broke into a sinister smile, which made Ruslin curious. He thought, "I'm a demon. The laws here don't apply to me." His gaze flicked to a corner of the market, where Jinchi was watching from afar. "Maybe he smelled something too, but I've already figured out a way to get the seeds." After regaining his composure, Credos turned back to Ruslin and changed his tone. "So you want to buy potatoes?" Ruslin confirmed, but before he could finish, Credos cut in, "Bring your boss here." The sudden tone left Ruslin stunned. He stepped forward and shouted angrily, "I am the one in charge of this entire operation." Credos replied coldly, "You're just an employee. Why the attitude? I'm not sure you have the authority to negotiate with me." Ruslin lowered his voice. "I hold the second highest authority in the Richmond Merchants Guild. I have full decision-making power." Credos nodded and then shouted, "Good, then pay me 200 gold coins for one potato. Do you want to buy it?" Those words were like a bucket of cold water dumped on Ruslin, causing him to cry out, "200 is too much." Credos put on an amused face and said, "Oh dear, your purse is too thin. Now can you call your boss out here? Surely he'll give it some thought. A giant potato that's been fully processed in large quantities would be perfect for supplying the royal army. Wouldn't it?" With a cold stare forward, he continued, "The question is, if you take a loss buying these potatoes, but in return secure an exclusive deal with the royal house, is it ultimately a loss or a profit?" Those sharp words darkened Ruslin's face. He ground his teeth in fury but could not answer. Credos repeated coldly, "Bring your boss out here." At that moment, the sky suddenly drew black clouds, and rain began pouring down unexpectedly, forcing Azurat and Sergei to stand drenched in the downpour. Azurat shouted angrily, "I'll never forgive you, you demon king." Sergei reminded him, "Go on your own. Did you forget what the demon king said? If anyone finds out we can speak human language, we'll be sold out for sure." Seeing her change in attitude, Azurat asked in surprise, "Since when have you become so loyal? Don't you feel insane being dragged into human territory?" Sergei replied, "I'm just feeling happy." Azurat grew more puzzled. "What did you say just now?" She stared into the distance, contemplative. "I'm just curious. Since I was little, I've wanted to know what this place is like. They say there's plenty to eat here and people don't eat each other. It's hard for me to imagine. You know, my mother was eaten by a stronger demonic beast. I wasn't very sad. I just made excuses to get by. You think it's normal when your siblings are eaten, don't you?" Those words dimmed Azurat's expression. Sergei continued, "This city is poorer than I expected, but at least people don't eat each other. I saw in the market, the kids were hungry, yet the father still gave his potato to his child. If I were born here, my family could be happy like that too. Couldn't we?" Tears welled at her eyes and mixed with the falling rain. Azurat mocked, "Why are you all giggly with spring feelings?" Sergei answered, I'm just getting used to this new body. Azurat spread his wings to shield her from the rain and softened his voice. Even demonic beings can experience happiness. While they chatted, Kratos appeared and called out loudly, "Hey, you too!" Both startled. Azurat hurriedly explained, "No, it's just a misunderstanding." Sergei added, "Azurat is always teasing me, please. Kill him for me." Kratos stepped forward, scooped them both up, and cheerfully said, "Come with me. We're having an emergency meeting of the 4 great demon kings." All 4 of them assembled. Azurat asked, "Are we hoarding all the food and selling it at high prices?" Sergei continued, "Why do that? Isn't this place full of things to eat?" Kratos replied indifferently, "They just want to make money, get richer. They're not afraid of starving to death." Understanding, Baal spoke up, "When basic needs are met, people turn to seeking respect." That remark annoyed Kratos. "What nonsense is that?" Azurat analyzed. "It's not just respect, it's also greed." He recalled scenes of his kind eating one another in the past and sighed. Sergei also protested. "Even though some people truly starve with nothing to eat," Baal said, "I am feeling anger." Recognizing the group's intent, Kratos declared, "For great demon generals, you may dislike it, but humanity is what it is. We just need to stay calm and act with purpose. If we're demons, we must act like demons. We'll seize their warehouses." His face turned icy, and the scene shifted toward the farms. At that moment, countless whirlwinds rose, and dust and smoke billowed everywhere. Many demon clans murmured among themselves, "What is Lord Hartok doing? Why is he suddenly creating those giant stone bowls?" Hartok stood in the eye of the storm, veins bulging on his face, enduring pain. He doubled over, braced his hands on the ground, and sighed. "It's getting harder and harder to keep going." Then he shouted loudly, "You think this is break time? Get back to work." The demon folk immediately fled. Zephyr stepped forward and asked, "Lord Hartok, you're overexerting yourself. What do you intend to do with this water?" Staring at the hundreds of large bowls, Hartok replied, "You know many demonic beings have gathered here. We can't feed them all with the potatoes we have, so I'll cook them in water so that with the same ingredients we can feed many more." He growled, "No demonic being in this land will be allowed to starve again." Zephyr squinted, thinking, why does he do good deeds but wear such a grim expression? Since the Demon King took up farming, everything changed. Hartok, once cruel and cold, now devotes himself to producing food for his kin. Hartok fell into thought, and then smiled knowingly. "Ha! I'll be praised a lot for this, won't I?" Zephyrs asked next. "But heating those huge stone bowls will require a lot of fuel, right?" He nodded. "If not, we'll have to crush the homes of lower-tier demon clans. So we'll go to the Third Star Lord's domain, the sealed volcano, to hunt the fire eaters." Those words stunned Zephyrs, and the scene shifted to the city of Magrat. At that moment, Richmond personally led the key members of the Merchants Guild to Credo's boarding house. Seeing the shabby boarding house, he wondered, "Is this the place?" Then he turned to scold Ruslan. "This time you've disappointed me." Disappointment flashed in his eyes, unbelieving that a bumpkin from the countryside would threaten him. "If you're this foolish, how can you handle big matters? Stay here. I'll teach you how to extract money from a country hick." With that, he strode into the boarding house. Inside, hearing a knock, Kratos asked, "Who is it?" Richmond introduced himself. "I am Richmond, a merchant of this city. You summoned me, so I came." Seeing the person he wanted to meet had arrived, he replied, "Ah, right. Please come in." Richmond pushed the door open and entered, saying as he did, "Excuse me then." His eyes were calculating. Fools often drop their guard before false politeness, unaware that the smooth talkers are the most dangerous. Contrary to his expectations, Credo's group radiated heavy pressure. All eyes fixed on Richmond, making him shiver for an instant, silently curse. "My God, these people are scary." Credo said, "Aren't you going to sit? Do you prefer standing?" A seemingly ordinary invitation made Richmond stammer as he approached the chair and hurriedly sat down. He still wondered inwardly. They look like demon clans, and those beasts, are they really beasts? They have human faces. The handsome, drooling kid was even more frightening. Once things settled, Kratos got straight to the point. "So you've heard our proposal, right?" Richmond trembled and stammered. "Yes. You asked for 200 gold coins for a single potato." Kratos cut in. "No, I said 300. Richmond froze in shock and protested. "No, 300 is too much." Kratos reassured him. My group even includes members of the Azrahan family. At the familiar name, Richmond lowered his voice. The Azrahan clan? Kratos leaned forward and said coldly. They are the highest nobility. Directly ordered by the royal family, wouldn't aligning with them be wise? After a round of negotiation, Richmond stepped outside and told Ruslan. Deal at 300 gold. The lad jumped and shouted. What? Richmond continued. Escort them to my mansion. Prepare private rooms for them all, including the beasts. Ruslan asked for clarification. He answered in a low voice. That's only part of the terms. Seeing his employer's change in attitude, Ruslan asked, Lord Richmond, why be so kind to those idiots? Richmond fell silent, then suddenly snapped loudly. You fool, you good for nothing, get lost. The losses now are the ripe fruits of tomorrow. You know nothing. Having said that, he turned and left, still thinking they were truly frightening. Stung by the insult, Ruslan bit his lip and angrily faced Kratos. At that, Ball spoke up. I don't get it, wouldn't it be easier to just kill them and take the seeds? Kratos nodded. Yeah, you'd only think of that. Then he asked again. But if a battle breaks out and the disguise potions fail, what then? War between humans and demons would be unavoidable. He continued coldly. Avoid open war as much as possible. Sneak in, steal everything, and run, that's best. After that, Kratos began outlining the plan. Listen up. To dominate the market you need 3 things. 1. A backer so we don't run afoul of the law. 2. Lots of money. 3. A massive warehouse to store provisions. We'll stay at his mansion and find where the warehouse is. Hearing this, Sergei asked, Demon King, how do you know human nature so well? As if you've lived here a long time. Kratos looked briefly embarrassed, then returned to his terrifying expression and replied coldly, I know everything, because I am the Demon King. Only fools would believe such words. But the whole conversation was overheard by Kim Chi outside. Kim Chi thought to himself, is it human greed or destiny? No, wait, he's Demon King Kratos. Scene shifts to Richmond's mansion. Elbaha stepped forward and smiled at Kratos. Kim Jang-cheol, I didn't expect you'd find such decent lodgings. How did you manage it? He waved his hand to dismiss it. I said I was selling noble potatoes and things just turned out this way. They're being generous to us. Elbaha marveled. I thought those potatoes were just big, but they actually have real value. Florentina jumped up and exclaimed, Not just big giant. They should have been a tribute to the king. Elbaha teased. You really love potatoes? How you even look like them? Florentina retorted. Like what? Elbaha studied her a moment, then mumbled, Facial features? Ignoring that, Florentina turned to Kratos and asked, Don't tell me you sold them all. He replied, Every last one. Frontera angrily clutched his head and shouted. Kratos reassured him, But they'll be ours again, because we'll steal them back. A gleam of satisfaction flashed across Frontera's face. Then let's act together, Elbaha asked in surprise. Steal? What are you talking about? Kratos smiled. Just as I said, we'll steal everything they're holding. Elbaha shouted in anger. I serve the nation. I can't condone this. Kratos raised a hand in agreement. Yes, you can't ignore it. But you also can't hoard the city's food and wreck the economy. Right? Realizing the plan, everyone went back to their tasks. Cut to outside. Kratos approached Ruslan and said, You must be working hard, huh? Then he suggested, So bring the potatoes to the warehouse. Ruslan answered casually, Yeah, that's right. Still, he felt something amiss, thinking to himself that those eyes were untrustworthy. Kratos stepped closer, wore an exaggerated expression, and proposed, Let's go take a look at the warehouse. I want to check whether it's properly stored. At that suggestion, Ruslan immediately refused. No, you can't. When asked why not, Ruslan replied coldly, The warehouse is top secret. Kratos pressed on. Then why is it top secret? Caught up in the conversation, Ruslan revealed it was a trade secret that kept meat fresh. Hearing that, Kratos threw his head back and shouted, Come on, show me that secret place. This attitude made Ruslan snap. You've gone too far. When persuasion failed, Kratos flopped to the ground, rolling and yelling, Let me see the warehouse. Watching someone writhe on the floor, Ruslan shouted, There are limits, outsiders can't see it. Then he turned to the driver. What are you standing there for? Go now. The driver nodded in agreement. Just as the wagon began to move, Kratos suddenly sprang up, hurled himself to the front of the wagon and again rolled on the ground, screaming, "You're not going anywhere if you want to leave. Step over my dead body, or take me to the warehouse." The driver, furious, and a soldier climbed down to try to drag Kratos aside, saying as they worked, "Your lordship, step aside quickly, I beg you." Kratos kept shouting, "These are my potatoes, where do you plan to take me?" The warehouse, the warehouse." This incident made Ruslan furious, veins bulging on his face, but Kratos paid no mind and continued yelling, "Warehouse? Warehouse, where is it? Where is it?" Seeing this, the three Sergi upstairs could only look at one another helplessly. Baal asked, "Demon King, what is he doing?" Sergi shot a cold glance. "It's embarrassing to watch, makes me not even want to acknowledge him as the Demon King." For men dragged Kratos away while he kept muttering, "My potatoes are drifting into that rotten, dark warehouse." Seeing the spectacle, Elbiha upstairs couldn't help but feel embarrassed for him. "Why is he behaving like that?" Frontera from behind explained, "A real man has to act like that. He threw away his dignity for a greater purpose. I should learn that so I can use it in my next life." Hearing this, Elbiha turned and asked, "Why use it in the next life? You'll be mocked." Elbiha looked down at Kratos and thought, "Kim Jang-cheol, you speak with such confidence." He recalled the earlier conversation with Kratos. Then Kratos had said, "We could dig into their crimes and punish them, but how long would it take to gather enough evidence, uncover their backers, and draw the court's attention? In the meantime, the people will starve to death. I can't bear that harsh truth." At that, tears streamed down his face with the rush of feeling. Across from him, Elbiha couldn't hold back tears either. Kratos continued, "I believe Lord Azrahan will understand, so join me in taking everything back to reclaim what they've seized and restore justice to the people." Back in the present, Elbiha remained lost in thought, grasping Kratos' resolve and vowing to do his best to remember his words. "I'll find out where their warehouse is. Lord Azrahan, please prepare what I ask." Down below, Kratos was still writhing on the ground, as several drivers joined forces to restrain him, grabbing his arms and legs, shouting together, "1, 2, and then heaved him away. But with the Demon King's instinct, Kratos easily regained his balance and moved back toward the wagon. One man shouted angrily, "Damn it, he's persistent like a sack of sand." Watching their backs, Kratos stood up and smiled broadly. "Ha ha, this is a sweet score, it's all set." System notification. For the next 7 hours, Ruslan will be extremely irritable. He revealed the secret warehouse lies to the north, outside the mining district. Upon receiving the notice, Kratos grinned with satisfaction. Upstairs, Kim Chi observed everything, thinking to himself, if he wanted, he could use force. So is it all for justice or just a show? Is he a demon or a hero? The more I watch, the less clear it becomes. Cut to a new scene. Hartok and Zephyrs had arrived at the volcano area. Zephyrs asked, "Lord Hartok, the Fire Eater here is very strong, shouldn't we bring the Legion?" Hartok replied, "You just said it yourself, the Fire Eater is very strong. Bringing many weak soldiers would only add casualties. Caring for them is even more dangerous. This is the responsibility of the 4 great demon generals." With that, Hartok used his strength to bend 2 iron fence bars aside, creating a narrow passage. That force made Zephyrs and the little dragon behind him shudder. After clearing the path, he turned and asked, "Did you record what I said?" Zephyrs nodded. Hartok then sent men inside, rubbing his nose as he walked and chuckling inwardly. "It's the right color. The Demon King will praise me, Hartok, the farming genius. The Fire Eater here was very smart and extremely hot-tempered. It should have been purged for cannibalism, but its power was too great and it was sealed here." Watching the lava surge, Hartok shouted, "Come out, Fire Eater Chris. I entrust this task to you." Immediately after, from the calm surface of the lava came violent tremors. A pillar of lava shot straight up, rising past Hartok's position, and from that molten column emerged the body of a giant dragon, mumbling in its mouth, "Food, food." Facing the dragon, Hartok's expression was extremely calm, as if he had everything under control. But then Kratos' eyes suddenly widened, cursing silently, "Holy crap, how did it get so big?" Outside, Zephyrs was still playing with T-Bong, making the kids squeal with excitement. Seeing T-Bong happy, Zephyrs rubbed harder, causing the boy to laugh even more. At that moment, Hartok, his clothes torn, suddenly burst out and shouted, "Run!" Before they could understand what was happening, from behind, a giant dragon lunged out, startling Zephyrs. The dragon spat a few jets of fire that coalesced into a massive fireball, belching a huge blaze toward the two of them, forcing them to flee for their lives. Seeing this, Zephyrs yelled while running, "Lord Hartok, you were so confident going in what happened?" There was no time to explain. Hartok could only shout, "Shut up! That beast has grown far stronger from feeding on fire all this time." Hearing that, Zephyr scribbled as he ran. Lord Hartok once proclaimed he'd lead bravely, now he's fleeing. Hartok ground his teeth and snapped, "Don't write details like that, you maniac." Then he bellowed, "Retreat for now. We'll find another way to ignite the fire." Thinking of the starving demon clan, Hartok's resolve only hardened. He spun around. Sergei clenched his fist tightly, thinking to himself there was no time left. From his hand, a magical orb formed and transformed into a giant hand. Then it lunged straight at the dragon as he shouted aloud, "I am Hartok of the four great heavenly kings. Even if I bleed, I will fulfill my duty." Witnessing this, Zephyrs below was stunned into silence, while the little dragon T-Bong suddenly spat a glob of saliva into the big dragon's face. From a small icy patch, the frost spread rapidly, and within seconds the giant dragon's entire body was frozen solid. Hartok, still hovering in the air, fell silent for a few moments. That hesitation made Zephyrs below look thoughtful as well. Seeing things temporarily under control, Hartok gently landed, but Zephyrs continued to take out pen and paper and wrote, "Lord Hartok of the four great heavenly kings looks very embarrassed." Catching his subordinate jotting down such private stuff, Hartok, furious, turned and shouted, "Don't write that down." Cut to evening at the mansion. Kratos began assigning tasks to everyone. "3 of you stay here and wait for my signal. I'll scout the food warehouse." Elbaha nodded. "Okay, leave it to me." He clenched his fist, resolved for the people's food. Before he could finish, Elbaha interjected, "Lord Kim Jang-il seems like a good man, but what's with his face?" He called back, "What's wrong with my face?" Elbaha said, Never mind." He asked again, "But why did you hide everything from old Kim Chi?" He replied, "He draws too much attention in many ways. Just 2 people with me are enough." He glanced toward Ball and the 2 beasts sitting in the room, then took a breath and smiled. "I see there could be disputes, so it's better I keep my mouth shut." With the plan set, Kratos leapt into action, thinking as he moved, "The plan is to steal the seeds but keep distance from old Kim Chi. Of course act when he knows nothing. If he doesn't tail him, it's because after scouting he'll bolt." At the Merchant Guild storage, after traveling a stretch of road, Kratos had arrived. Thanks to his skills, he easily bypassed the 2 guards at the gate and slipped further inside. Overcoming countless obstacles, he thought to himself, "The security here is tight. One wrong step and it's over. War could break out at any moment. The biggest risk is that if anyone gets injured, the disguise will disappear. If Kim Chi finds out, we're done for." Where is their food warehouse now? Lost in thought, Kratos didn't realize Kim Chi had appeared right behind him. When he noticed, he quickly spun around. Their eyes met and sparks flew. Kratos flinched, his heart pounding, unable to speak, his whole body trembling. Kim Chi asked, "Why the startle? From where I sit, your face is even more intimidating. You planning to share food with the people? I'll help you." Realizing his intent had been discovered, he asked, "How did you know?" Kim Chi replied, "I have sharp ears. Sitting upstairs, I heard your entire conversation." Every word hit Kratos like a punch, leaving him gaping in shock. Sweat poured off him. He panted, thinking, "Wait, so you heard everything I said to the 4 great heavenly kings? They called me the Demon King. Did they?" He stood stunned for a long moment, then reminded himself, "What does that matter now? We have to act fast." Hearing that, he forced himself calm, forced a smile, and nodded. "Yeah, that's right." He kept thinking that if Kim Chi really had heard, he'd be torn to pieces. No, impossible, he surely hadn't heard. Then Kratos crouched down and ordered, "Just follow me. I need to confirm the route." Seeing him sneaking around, Kim Chi asked, "Why the sneaking? Wouldn't it be faster to just kill them all?" "That's how I was taught." Those words froze Kratos for a few seconds. He remembered playing games, always opting for violence to win, but now one wrong move would lose everything. He waved his hand. "True, but life is precious. Fewer fights are better, and a clean ending is ideal. Kim Chi pondered for a moment, then bowed his head slightly and sighed. I see, if you believe that. The two moved deeper into the warehouse, a vast place where travel was by rail. Observing, they saw no guards. He thought to himself, that's strange. The deeper in, the fewer the sentries. Kratos' gaze suddenly caught several golems guarding ahead, his eyes darting around. He realized, these are the golems I saw in the game logs, weapons developed in the human mage towers. But in the game they were all destroyed, so they'd never appeared before. He wondered how strong these golems might be here. While Kratos was still thinking, Kim Chi suddenly lunged forward, delivering 2 precise slashes that easily toppled 2 golems. This action left Kratos gaping in astonishment. He stepped closer and shouted, you just wrecked them, aren't you afraid of triggering an alarm? I told you this had to be done quietly. Kim Chi replied coldly, they're not living Sergi creatures, so what's the problem? This is even faster. He muttered, besides, I kept hearing clanking, this way is still quicker. Kratos now stood with wide eyes, frozen for a moment, then broke into a sly smile. Indeed, that was true. Deeper into the Merchant Guild storage, they discovered 3 more golems. Kratos noted that if they were spotted or an alarm sounded, the whole plan would collapse. Kim Chi beside him suggested, check each of the 3 patrol routes at least 10 times, wait for a blind spot to appear, then take out the farthest one first. Right? He nodded in agreement, thinking to himself, he spoke as if he could read my mind. Could he still remember what it felt like to be controlled by me? Kim Chi continued, there was almost no gap at all. It looked like the 2 of them had to strike at the same time. There are 2 close together, separate them and take them down one by one when they're apart. That will be easier. Kratos hesitated, unsure if he could fell a golem with a single blow. He told himself, I can't gauge their true strength, and I don't know how powerful my transformed form really is. Suddenly Kim Chi pulled out a staff, handed it to Kratos. Take this, holding it will make you feel stronger. He recognized immediately that it was one of the secret supreme weapons, Bragia's adorable heart hammer, at first thought to be a prank toy, but in fact a terrifying relic. Gripping the staff, Kratos felt his stats surge at once. With it in hand, his chance of success was much higher. Kim Chi also drew out a colossal greatsword, raising it. I'll use this. Seeing him constantly pull weapons from his person, Kratos thought wryly, like Doraemon, but more like Doremi. After preparing, Kim Chi said, let's go, just wait for the right moment to act. Kratos gritted his teeth, only to see Kim Chi rush ahead, forcing him to follow quickly to coordinate. When Kim Chi stopped in front of a golem, Kratos realized the intent and immediately coordinated. The 2 attacked simultaneously, each landing a blow to the center of a golem's head, easily destroying both at once. However, the commotion caused the last golem to turn back on an erratic trajectory. Kratos immediately rolled to dodge and quickly closed in on the target. Kim Chi did the same. When they both drew near, Kim Chi swung his sword decisively, cleaving the golem in 2. Seeing how smoothly things went, Kratos thought, this Kim Chi isn't just fast, his coordination is oddly perfect. After clearing out the golems, 2 soldiers appeared in the distance to inspect. Without hesitation, Kratos and Kim Chi rushed out together, each delivering a strike to the nape that knocked the 2 soldiers unconscious on the spot. Both landed lightly on the ground, their seamless coordination leaving Kratos amazed. How am I perfectly in sync with such a terrifying person, and feel this happy about it? Kim Chi's lips curled up, thinking to himself, he taught me how to fight but told me not to kill. Once intent on wiping out humanity, now talking about peace. A mysterious being from another world, hard to understand, but accompanying him brings me joy. The 2 advanced deeper into the warehouse like a perfect duo. Seeing Kim Chi grip a soldier too hard, Kratos warned, you're squeezing him too hard. Not everyone is evil. They might just be earning a living. They have their own hardships. I don't want to cause anyone more pain. Kim Chi seemed moved by this, and the 2 continued deeper inside. Scanning around and seeing no more guards or golems, Kim Chi wondered, it's deep, and why is there no one watching? Kratos replied, maybe they didn't expect anyone to get this far without being detected. After moving on for a bit, Kim Chi signaled to be silent. Ahead was a gigantic door, unusually sized, so large that even a golem would have trouble passing through. Kratos smiled. This has to be the food warehouse. Just as they were about to move on, Kim Chi blocked the way. Wait, someone's coming. From afar, Richmond approached the door with two massive golems. Suddenly, the guard golem's eyes turned red and it spoke in a mechanical voice. Someone detected. No one is allowed to enter here. Leave within 3 seconds if you do not wish to be attacked. Richmond calmly raised his hand, revealing a ring that emitted a glow, shining into the golem's eyes. Its eyes turned blue and it said, "Blood of Lord Richmond confirmed. Welcome." The giant door immediately opened. Watching that, Kratos thought to himself, confirmation by blood? That makes our plan a lot easier. Inside the warehouse, agricultural goods of every kind were stacked across the shelves. Bread, vegetables, and seeds were all perfectly preserved. He excitedly proposed, "Lord Kratos, let's change our plan. When the 3 golems gather, take them out with a single strike." Hearing the suggestion, Kim Chi nodded and replied decisively as if it were too easy. Then he immediately vanished from his spot and dashed straight forward, swinging his sword, quickly taking out all 3 golems and clearing the way for Kratos to move deeper into the storage. Kratos wasted no time. He grabbed Richmond's shoulder, startling him, and Richmond spun around shouting, "Who are you?" Without a word,